to face. So why don't we start by going around and introducing each other to those who may be new. Clint Folsom, Mayor. Michelle.
Oh, you could go the other way, but yeah, Michelle Horton, just
And as you smell?
Sharon Procopio with JDA. Caitlin Stafford on RCAC.
Sandy Pennington, Mayor Pro Tem.
Jim Payne, Rock Creek HOA, and I serve as liaison to the committee from the HOA.
Mike Kenshin on RCAC.
Kevin Ryan, one of the newly elected trustees.
Sandy Hammerly, also one of the newly elected trustees.
Rita Dozell, trustee.
I'm Martin Toth, I'm on staff and I'm the liaison with RCAC.
Mark Lasis, trustee.
You're not new. I don't think you're new.
I'm seasoned.
Yeah.
The newness is gone.
Yeah.
Seasoned.
This is gone after
More
like
recently.
a month.
Yeah. All right. Do we have a agenda we'd like to go through? Michelle, do you want to lead? You're the chair. No.
Essie's actually the chair.
Essie's chair. Do you want to?
Essie's so
Lead us
kindly
off.
friendly.
Sure. Yeah, so we put together a cover memo that I think, Martin, have you sent that around to everyone?
Yeah, so that's on the regular presentation for the board meeting. So
Yeah,
we thought
exactly.
we'd maybe take a couple of minutes and maybe give the group a preview, I think is maybe what the group kind of characterized it.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been putting together a whole list of different items for both kind of short-term and long-term in terms of things that we think will help the town promote sustainability in a business-friendly way and help make sure that we're competitive with other towns as well in terms of our approach to sustainability. So we'll go into more details later, but we've got both kind of a voluntary type of pilot program we'd like to consider having you run. And then we'd also like to encourage the board to consider updating our energy code as well. So we get to the current standard rather than, I believe right now it's the 2012 we've adopted as a town. So those are kind of our two main things that we'll go into more detail about. And then going forward, we're also investigating whether it makes sense to do things like look at mandatory benchmarking. And so we'd like to see how the board feels about if that's something that's worth our pursuing going forward. And then also looking at standards around readiness for electric vehicle charging and solar readiness as well. So those are things that, for example, Boulder and some of the other areas nearby are looking at. So yeah, that's kind of a high-level overview of all the different things we've been working on, some of which we'll present in more detail in a little bit.
Okay. So you're going to do a more detailed presentation during the
Yeah, we've got a whole
segment.
presentation
Okay.
for the presentation segment. And
All right.
yeah.
Okay. Were there other, I guess, work items that you wanted to talk? That's typically what we talk about during these dinners, is just kind of the work plan and
Sure.
just kind of a bigger picture of what the committee's working on. Is that?
Sure, yeah. So we've been doing a variety of different work. We work with the Do Good program. So that's managing dog waste, especially in the dog park, and looking at managing waste more broadly throughout the town and ways that we can improve that and encourage both recycling and composting and things like that. Oh, excellent. Yeah, there's a work plan.
Just in case that question came up.
Perfect, thanks, Martin. Yeah, so you can see we've got a fairly extensive ongoing list, and then after the text you can see up there, we've also got work broken out by quarter in terms of things that the advisory committee gets together and talks about and discusses and works on. So different sort of events like Arbor Day, and those types of things, looking at working with Boulder County around some of their energy programs and sustainability programs. There's also a free water program that town residents can take advantage of, where they can get their sprinklers and faucets and things inspected to make sure that they're using water efficiently. And yeah, try not to just read over everything, but those are some of the big picture things. I'm not sure if anyone else on the committee has highlights that they want to bring up. But
How closely is RCAC involved with the curbside compost pickup, or is that more of an HOA trash thing?
HOA trash.
largely trash, usually. Yeah.
All right.
I would say we're aware of it, and
Yep.
at those occasions where we're
out at the like at the Arbor Day Festival, interacting with people. It's something we try to inform people about.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the extent of our
That's really
involvement.
nice. We have nothing to do with the trash contract except for we offered our advice when we reviewed it. Was that last year?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I'll just throw out a related story. I signed up for the compost service this time after having heard about it for years, but I was a little disappointed that it just didn't work. They kept missing us, and I'd call them, and they wouldn't come get it. I just finally, we just said, forget it. This is too much of a hassle, so. I mean, we take big stuff to the yard waste center, which, by the way, is, if you all had anything to do with the remodeling there, that was also a great improvement on that center. So we just take things there, but it's, I guess, disappointing that the compost thing didn't work out because we were hopeful, but.
The biggest problem with that is because it's just a few people. You know, if we had it town-wide, it would be cheaper overall and it would be consistent, and that's really the problem.
Yep.
They basically send a truck to come to a few houses or whatever.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard it. I did hear a complaint today, which is the first complaint I'd heard about what you're talking about. So
I think what they did was they told us the wrong week. It's every other week. And they told me it was 1 week, but then my wife said, "Oh, the truck just drove through here,"
Oh, jeez.
and it was the off week.
And then that means you're
I'll
off.
check on that because we actually publish the actual dates. We don't leave it that we say these dates.
Anyway, we're done with it. It's all good.
No second chance.
I did give him a second chance.
Oh, no third chance.
Yeah. That's all.
And are you getting feedback on the sprinkler program, about whether or not that's effective or not? Because I'm going to tell a similar story. I emailed, I called, I was excited for my audit. I reported it out here at a meeting. I can't get a return phone call.
That reminds me, I
the
did the
county
same thing too.
The county.
No, it was on, I picked it right up on the Town of Superior website, clicked through the link, provided my personal information.
Yeah, I've heard anecdotal stories, at least, that it seems to be working well for the most part. And I've participated in previous years, so I'm not sure if something has changed. But I had a positive experience then. So, yeah, I think that'd be worth us.
I read some footnote that it capped out at number of participants, so I thought maybe I was.
You're out of there.
No, we usually don't have that until much
tell
later
you.
in the summer, usually probably July or later maybe. So yeah, if you had an individual snafu with trying to get registered, we can follow on that.
Right.
But that's with the Center for Resource Conservation. It's the third-party group that does this throughout the county to help do those irrigation audits. And they've done a great job for the most part. But occasionally there's going to be some hiccups on a program like that.
Yeah, I personally wanted to comment on that I think it's a great program. We actually called them and had them come do the summit at Rock Creek, which is one of the biggest covers of land other than Calmonte in the community. And the report we got back was unbelievably good. It was really good. And
You mean helpful or?
No, it was very, very helpful. And we are in the process of spending $32,000 to update our system. I am hoping that we will see a significant decrease in our water bill, and we have a huge water bill. But it was incredible, the detail and the time they took. I mean, I think they spent most of a day because it's a big property. But you know, they found a lot of mistakes, and then we had to hire our landscape company to come in and do it. But, you know, hopefully it'll be not only a savings for us, but for the town too. Because, I mean, we use hundreds of thousands of gallons of sprinkler water. So, I wanted to go on record as saying it's great. People should take advantage of it, because there were things that we knew were a problem, but we were having trouble getting our landscape company to actually act on a lot of them. So having the report
They paid attention.
was value to us, because then all we had to do was hire our company to go in and fix it. Not that it was cheap, but, you know, I thought it was a really, really valuable service.
So on that goal to help homeowners make their landscaping more efficient. You've got to, obviously, for Rock Creek, coordinate with HOA. So have you guys ever figured out how we can do this? Because we have a requirement in Rock Creek.
There's really
for
no
green.
issue, the only bigger, I don't know if there are any outstanding issues. I mean, it's the same process, we allow it, and we now work with a,
Xeriscape?
we have a consultant, so if the biggest problem we have is just being able to understand and read the complex designs for xeriscaping when they're, elaborate. And inspection is more complicated and all of that. But we have a consultant, Alan Macbeth, formerly the town's.
He's back?
He's in Tulsa. We work with him remotely. He does work here too for the town.
Oh, really? I had no clue.
So we've got, we're ready. Actually, it's interesting, landscaping requests have just fallen off a cliff. There have hardly been any. I'm not exactly sure why this year. Usually we're just awash with them, but so far there haven't been many. Anyway, which is temporary. But we're ready. We're fully set up for that.
You don't require that 40% or 60% coverage anymore, do you?
Sure.
Of green? Not
70.
necessarily lawn, but green.
75% living material.
Living material, but it used to be, there was actually a certain percentage of green grass, which.
So it's
I've
still
never
living
seen
material.
that. I've never seen that anywhere. Certainly not in the last, since I've been associated. It's never been that. It's always been.
They've always used the term living material.
It's always
Yeah.
been long-lived materials, and that's what we do, and that gives us, full scope.
Rocks are really long-lived.
Living live, should be. So, yeah, so.
Okay. No problem there then.
Nope. We encourage it.
The thing is, a lot of the stuff that kind of falls under RCAC is like historical stuff that maybe they started a long time ago or got lumped in with us. It's not necessarily anything that we do tons of with currently,
Yeah.
except for like citizen questions or trying to promote things, promote xeriscaping or promote the garden in the box. And
Yeah, and last year there's some kind of training efforts to let people know how to do xeriscaping effectively, so that if they want to go in and do that with HOA approval, they can. And I know that was really popular and sold out pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, our group works to kind of, provide advising as needed, but a lot of it's kind of handled through the HOA and other groups.
I went to the xeriscaping clinic that somebody had, Town and You, I think, and it was very good, except it was disappointing at the end. I expected to have a plant list. And
Oh,
they
okay.
said, oh, we don't get into that. And I'm like, well, what the heck good are you then? Because I wanted to know exactly what to plant. What is a xeriscape plant? So they, I don't know, did you ever have version 2 of this that got into the plants?
I'm not sure if, I know we had a second one, but I'm not sure if we got more into it.
I thought it was the
The
second
plans.
The second one was a
first.
repeat of the first
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I thought it was just, okay.
But I'd like to actually go to the intermediate level now. See what the
Which on
actual
level
plant,
2?
yeah, the plant list is. Yeah, I did learn a lot at the first one. I thought that was
the funny thing is, I brought something like that a couple times before. But
Yeah, I know it came up as a discussion topic, but.
Because right when Rock Creek was being built, like the town always did like an Arbor Day thing down in like the parking lot here or just back there. And like they would have Lowe's and Home Depot come, and they would have like Kerners from CSU come, and they had these books, which I even still have, that I think we bought for like $1 or $2, that had all the plants for the different ones, and then they even had like sample plants that like Home Depot and Lowe's brought to buy.
Where was this?
It was town, like,
Well,
but this was, I
we-
mean, we're talking 16 years ago.
We did that
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was Harlequin, who's one of the leading nurseries for xeriscaping, came down and they spread out plants and examples and pictures and so forth and gave a little bit of a, I mean,
That would be good.
it's good. It's got limited value because those things change so quickly and they're so seasonal, so it's hard to, you really have to go up to the nursery at the time you're doing it and find out what's available. But But at any rate, it is instructive. We should always look at doing that again.
The Plant Select program is also really cool. I'm not sure if you
The what?
the Plant Select program, if you're familiar with that. It's the CSU extension with the Denver Botanic Gardens, I guess. And so they actually come up and breed plants that are designed just for the Colorado climate in particular that do really well here. And so they've got both xeriscape and non-xeriscape plants that are all pretty low maintenance.
And where do I find these people?
They have a website, and then the plants are also sold through a variety of nurseries nearby
Oh, really?
too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like a label that's left.
You'll
yeah,
see the
if you
tag.
look at the label.
The other thing that could be helpful, we've got so many well-done xeriscapic beds around town, and if we could have descriptors of them and label some of the things, I know they change out, but there was enough of it now that you could, if you had a guide to those.
Could we have a tour like they do in Boulder? They just had the Boulder
Yeah.
Garden tour. Maybe we can have the Superior Xeriscape tour.
You're talking about on public
I'm saying
spaces?
the town stuff is a lot easier to.
Right. But there's probably a lot of private homes too
Right,
that
that
have
would
got
be great.
really,
Right.
really nice ones. That might be a good Rock Creek Living article. They're always looking for articles, so maybe that'd be something that you all could write something up and help them promote it. But I like the tour idea.
Ahead of the actual physical tour,
Right.
the month before. The article appears, then the actual tour.
But you could take, you go over by around the pool houses, over in Founder's Park, all the various places where they've got really well-done professional.
Are these
xeriscaping.
xeriscape perennial beds, or do they have
Well,
to be
there's a whole
replanted?
mix. I mean, you
Okay.
have to, existing ones, and identify and label so people have a reference point. They could say, I like that. And then they would know what to get.
We occasionally do get those questions about what's in a particular bed. When the Asti Park was first finished, we have, and it's still up front, a list of all the plants that were planted there, and there were plant tags there for several years that
Okay.
people did ask about. And then, like Jim mentioned, the bed by the North Pool always gets a lot of attention, and the board's considered that through the annual annual flowers contract over the last 5-6 years, and had that really evolve as a little bit of a testing plot for some of the different perennials, and then also trying to find some complementary colors for annuals. It's always been a good spot. So it's kind of an ongoing thing.
Where is this?
The North Pool?
The North Pool, okay.
Yeah, that bed right by the front door.
Okay.
We refer people to that.
Okay. I also researched Garden in a Box this year. It's very intriguing, but then Costco had its bulb sale. So I bought 10 bags there, 1,500 bulbs, so I didn't need
Nice.
Garden in a Box. So has anybody here tried it?
I did it.
And
Yeah.
Does it come with plants or just bulbs?
Plants. They were smaller than I thought they would be, but I mean, it was
Yeah.
pretty easy to.
Have they
do it
survived?
all. They did through the snow. So.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe, because I had to start with bulbs, and
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to see.
Well, and Martin
So-
said the town used up all of the vouchers that we had. And so it was one thing we had talked about last week at our committee meeting was maybe next year expanding the program within Superior and offering more vouchers.
Because they always do sell out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bulbs don't
Really
usually
good.
really go to the next year.
Oh.
So.
You might be waiting a while.
Okay, I won't go out every day then.
Just remember where you put them.
I covered them all up for the snow because some started to sprout, and my husband said, "Let them die." And I'm like,
They'll be good. They're hardy.
"You're my witness, Kevin." I covered all those up.
Right, that's what you were
Oh
doing
my
those
God!
days.
Out there in my pajamas at 5:30 a.m. whatever Thursday morning.
The Garden in a Box was a good program ad. That was an item that came up through last year's budget recommendation from the committee to add back to something that the town had done in previous years. And the 50 vouchers that were funded this year were gone that same month, I think, with the folks who do the
What did
promotion
they
for that.
save?
What did they save? I think it's about $58. I'd have it close.
I thought it was 25.
No, it's more.
I think it depends on the box
Yeah.
too. So some of them you save more.
Which one did you get?
I did the Sunset Garden. But all the plants that they have through Garden Box are low water use and like design for the.
They all have
climate.
kind of a theme, you know.
Yeah.
There was like the
There was a
sunset one, the shade
pollinators
one, the
paradise
colors
for
one.
attracting
And they kind of ranged in
bees.
price. It was like 130-ish to 170-ish.
Well, they're a deal. I have to tell you, it's a real
Yeah,
deal.
I think mine was like 120 for 30 plants or 28 plants. So
That's great.
Something I can send on, Martin, is that Denver Water, when I was doing water conservation with Denver Parks, they have lists of actual maps of plantings for different types of yards, slopes, yard strips. And then it has the list of the names of the plants and a map. So it's basically a landscape design without a landscape designer for people.
This may be my own personal
Yeah.
little focus here, but I like this garden
There is-
emphasis.
It's really
that-
cool.
that we're
I'll
discussing.
send the links to the Denver
Yeah.
Water site, and of course,
Okay.
it would be something that, obviously, if you're in the HOA, you look at, but Denver Water spent a lot of time on that because there were so many people asking for it, so it might be something we could
That's
maybe
great.
do. I'll send you all the links.
That sounds awesome.
And that's really been one of the more programmatic items that this group is focused on. Like Michelle mentioned, there are a lot of ongoing programs that started because of this group that they advocated for when the programs came up, and the budget has continued to come through the board's budget review process, whether that's the dog waste compost or funding the yard waste site or continuing to partner with EcoCycle on the leftover or locker leftovers and the tours that go on. So that's been a real point of advocacy for this group, and why it's, you know, we try to capture it in the work plan every year, just from staff's perspective, so that it's visible and it's a good reminder of all the programs that have come up with this group. But it's every year it's a little something a little different. 2 years ago was focusing on the trash and recycling contract, and last year a couple of different program items, and this year with Garden in a Box, and trying to amplify some of the staff efforts, because I just didn't have a chance to get to a lot of the, I don't know what the word, program outreach items. The group has been very nice about helping supplement, coming to events and handing out some of the information, this great information that's available through, whether it's CSU Extension or Boulder County or the Center for Resource Conservation. So it's a packed work plan with a lot of detail and background to it, but it's not as many, I don't know what the word is, big picture policy items. You know, it's more of a program and outreach focus.
It is, yeah, that's what you could always say. 'Cause it would unfortunately come with a lot of paper.
It is a lot of paper.
So on one of those, can we have an update on how the hazardous waste and hard to recycle events went? I don't think that's in the report today, right?
It's not. The
I
household
know
hazardous...
200 families, but how does that compare? The hazardous
last-
waste?
So the...
Or, I don't know. I read 200 families participated.
There were about a little over 204 total, between the Hard to Recycle, which is hosted by EcoCycle, and then Household Hazardous Waste that is coordinated through Boulder County. And it was great. The last time we did this, we didn't have one last year because there was snow, and the folks who provide this service weren't available to come or reschedule. So last time we had this was 2 years ago, or the year before last. There was about 188. So the participation went up by about 25 or so from the last time we had it. And it was nice that it was happening the same morning as Wildflower Park's dedication, so there was just a lot of activity in one area. It was, you know, maybe in a weird way, a good co-event.
Yeah, I heard a little confusion from some people who, I think there was a CAPS meeting shortly thereafter, and I heard some people thought they were in the line to park for Wildflower. And they were actually in the hard to recycle line, which took a little while. It didn't move that fast because he had to get the junk out, right? So, but I
Yeah, it
agree,
was
the
very popular.
synergy of having it in the right place.
Yeah, it was great. Michelle helped process people with me and also with Lisa Skumans that morning. And there was maybe a dozen cars at a time, probably more than once. And it was great. It's a great problem to have, you know, to have people that want to bring in their recyclables or their household hazardous waste or batteries or light bulbs, whatever else they have. And we have a kind of an intake questionnaire, and we ask people what they would do if they didn't come to this. And some people very, very dutifully say, oh, I'd go over to Recyclers Row over in Boulder County and take the stuff there. But a lot of people are like, just leave it in my garage or my basement until you guys did this again next year. So it's just a great, I don't know what the word is, reminder. And especially when you have a captive audience of a dozen cars that I can talk to, or Michelle or Lisa could talk to.
And one suggestion would be to coordinate the timing with the Town of Superior garage sale. Because trust me, I find lots of hard to recycle and hazardous waste when I'm
Done with that.
preparing for my my
Yeah.
biannual
Well, it was only 2
garage
weeks
sale.
before, wasn't it?
Maybe the weekend after that.
Huh?
Yeah, I think right after would be perfect.
Yeah, like I
All the
would.
stuff that you can't get rid of.
I know, yeah, personally, I would strongly advise against doing it the day of. I think just from lessons learned of what people try to get rid
Yeah.
of. No
Maybe
matter
I
how many
agree
times
the
you tell them
weekend
that that's
after.
not what we're taking.
Yeah, it'd be great to schedule that in like a week to week to week basis. But we're with Boulder County and EcoCycle, and
Right,
we're
right, right.
completely at the mercy of the
Right.
school schedule, because that's the weekend that El
It has to
Dorado
be a 4-day weekend.
has a 4-day
Oh.
weekend. Because we have to bring stuff over to their parking lot, and it doesn't get picked up till Monday, so it has to be on a
That's what
4-day.
the curbside pickup program used to address. It was coordinated with the garage sale.
Yeah, which is one of our most frequently asked questions as to why we don't
And we
have
no
that.
longer have a truck come by and pick up the surplus garage sale items. That was a nice feature, and I think actually Sister Carmen got a lot of good stuff out of it. Because by that second day, you will just give it away. It's like, just come and get all this stuff. But the coordination between all those events would be a good thing.
Do we get any kind of a report on what gets recycled as opposed to just the 200, do we have a sense? Is it computers, is it paint, is it mattresses? I mean, do we have any sense at all of what the volume is of what goes through there?
We do. When we're doing the intake at the front, Lisa and Michelle were great about helping, again, ask why people came, how many items they're bringing, and what kind of things they're bringing, whether it was electronics or metal bulky things or plastic items or small motorized items like blenders or garage door openers, we learned. We had a sense. This year was a lot of electronics.
Too much scrap metal.
It was amazing how many people had just oversized big, fat TVs. If you remember the CRT monitors and the oversized TVs, this was just the year to get rid of that. In years past, it seemed like it was, I want to say primary colored plastic, like kids' plastic some years is really popular, some years it's a lot of batteries. It just seemed like every other car had either a VCR player or a TV in it.
They did, actually, yeah.
TVs are flat TVs are so cheap.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Crazy cheap.
Yeah.
So that's why.
And light.
Yeah.
Unlike the gigantic TVs that people brought.
Yeah, I just thought that giving people more of a sense of what we get rid of through that would be as valuable as knowing 200 people went through and, obviously I went up there and got rid of a big
I think it's
old
just
junky
tricky.
TV.
It's amazing how many people don't even really realize that whole facility exists. Because we
Yeah.
can't take everything that they will take at Resource or
Right.
whatever when we do that. But it's just,
But those
even if people wouldn't
discounts,
pay
I
more
used them
attention.
twice last year. Superior gets a discount. You take the little coupon in, and is it half? It's like half. or
It's
something.
50%.
Well, last year they had to do the vouchers because we had to cancel it due to snow.
Well,
You can do it at any
Swap it
time,
up
you can get the
to-
charm,
Yeah, going
50%
coupons.
off.
I know, we
You
discussed
get
this last time,
50%
because
off.
somebody said that we ran out of coupons.
Yes,
and they
with
couldn't
an
get
There
them.
were still coupons up through the date of that large pickup, but I don't, but you could take yourself if you want to go to
Yeah,
Charm
if you have the
without
ability,
going
they
through
charge
the large.
Yeah.
But that's really, they end too, but when they run out, but
Shove it
we hadn't run out yet
Yeah.
in April. We still had them available
Yeah.
to, if you want to go online and get your own and go.
Yeah, it was
take
funny because some lady that came to the line said she tried to go get a 50% off, but she couldn't, so she was waiting for
I
us to
did
have this
Charm
year.
last year in late August, and I got 50% off.
Yeah,
I had a coupon.
yeah, they were still available, maybe she just didn't know how to get it.
That's what I'm wondering now.
You have to have the coupon though until you're with you. You can't go there and say, I want 50% off.
No.
Or show it on your phone.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
a link to it. We
Yeah.
had it in the newsletter every month for
Right.
7 or 9 months.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
Should've
the key.
tried, yeah.
Right.
I brought 2 vacuum cleaners and Lisa didn't have the clue what to do with me. And so I said, no, I called them yesterday and asked them if they'd take them, and they said, yeah, absolutely, they did. So, and you go on the website too, the Charm website, and it lists like thousands of things that they take.
It does.
Yeah, it's hard to
It's
find.
amazing.
You go down their
Yeah,
list.
it's just thousands of things there that they take.
think that was our biggest takeaway this year, just in the general sense, is getting Charm to actually give us a concrete list of what they will take when we do these, because it's been a bit floating, like, there were things that they've sort of taken before but now won't. Like Martin was talking about garage door openers and, things like that. We have lots of grills, but they want to take that there because there was too much scrap metal. If you took it to Charm, they would take it, but they want to take it at this event. So it was very confusing because they're like, well, only if it's this size. And you're like, I don't know what you want. So hopefully next year they'll be.
Yeah, we'll try and get a little better
better
handle on the
concise
restrictions, because like Lisa or like Michelle mentioned, when people will come up and ask us what they would take, there are things we know they would take, but because they're doing this kind of on as a road show, kind of taking it to the jurisdiction, they have one truck to fill up. So they weren't taking the bulky metal, either fortunately or unfortunately. It just kind of worked out that way.
There she is. We mentioned her name and she shows up. That's what.
I mean, it would be a great opportunity if, if we had some youth council. I mean, I was trying to put it in my son's ear, but some group of entrepreneurial children that would get together and like go pick up all this stuff that people didn't want, like after that. And take a donation for taking it to Charm, but yeah.
No, yeah.
It's funny how many people won't go to Charm, even though it's really not that far away.
No.
Yeah, it
And
was
you have
nice
to
having
pay
a captive audience to really drill that home. You can go here any day of the week. And bring whatever you have, please.
And you can even get half price off the car rate too, I think, isn't it? Instead of $6. it's
Or if you
$3.
have an electric car, you can go for free.
Oh, well, there you go. You could take the
Find a
town's
friend.
car, I guess, take the town's electric car. And
So dog waste, how's that
Oh, good.
recycling program going?
I believe it's going really well. We've certainly had a lot of interest, and we actually have had a couple times where we started running out of bags and have had to restock them more frequently. So I don't know if you have anything else to add, Martin, but everything I've seen suggests that's going really well.
Are the bags still being stolen?
Yeah, there's some people that steal the bags. So we've increased signage.
Are we collecting as much dog waste, or roughly as much as you would presume we would collect from the number of bags we buy? Or
That's
is
a
there
good
quite a
question.
bit of slippage there?
Some of it might depend on the size of your dog.
For the average size dog.
But I think the instances I think that we're familiar with where the entire wicket of bags have been taken off, that doesn't happen as much anymore. Just because we do a little bit, I think we adjusted how we affix the bags to the holders. But the volume, like Essie mentioned, the volume that we take in every week, every month, has stayed consistent, kind of 50 to 75 pounds, sometimes 85-ish pounds a month. And it's been fairly consistent since we
Is that
started.
largely from the dog park, or are people actually collecting this at home and bringing it to the dog park facility?
I haven't had a chance to look too often. When I do go over there, and I have taken the time, and their staff members, just to take a look and see what's in it, just to see how full it is, just to make sure that we're on schedule.
Oh, you'll just see how full, not what's in the bag.
I looked it up.
Worst job.
It's just a lid. I see individual bags. I don't see big bags.
Well, I actually, this is
Is there a return address label?
This is a different issue, but I happen to have a dog waste receptacle right behind my backyard. It sure would be nice if those had lids on them, really, when they're near residential.
What? It's just a trash can.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's
Trash
just a
cans never have
by you.
lids on them.
Huh?
That's just a trash can by you.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that people
what
probably
do you
use
mean,
it
a
for
trash
dog
can?
waste.
Yeah.
It's not a dog waste collection.
There's a dog waste thing right there.
It's really the only
It's just a
thing-
normal trash can.
All trash cans are
Co-located a lot.
But it's really the only thing
There are a lot
anybody
of
would ever
places
put.
that
Well,
go-
yes,
I don't
Right.
disagree. I don't
Right.
disagree.
Guess why? It's full of dog
used heavily
waste.
for it.
Oh, I have no doubts. I'm just saying, it's
Because
not.
It's not dedicated for
Exactly. It's not part of
Theoretically,
this
it's
program.
multi-purpose.
But you get my point on the lid.
Yeah, I'm just glad that
Yeah.
I mean, that would be sort of nice if it were somehow affixed so it wouldn't go with the Chinook winds into my windows. But we, getting more serious, we have a bit of an issue with unpicked up dog waste in this community. And so I think it's largely pro-stack sort of thing, but OSAC distributed little bags at the
Park opening.
park opening. And so my attitude is any committee that can start thinking about this and how we can resolve this issue in the town and encourage compliance and all that kind of stuff, I think that can go across committees if you want to spend any brain power on that one.
Well, I don't know how much it would cost to do like little mini things because, you know, the place that we contract with for the park is on that big bin. You know, so having multiple bins across town would be probably a lot more expensive. But it's an interesting thought because I've even said this to you before that we should sell the compostable dog do bags at town hall. Because it's better no matter what, even if you're just putting in your trash, you know, but it's better to use those because those plastic bags will never deteriorate that the town puts up. So, but we can't justify putting those through town, but I think people would come and buy them and potentially use them and maybe take it to the dog waste facility and it could kind of support the whole cost of all this by doing that.
This is when we haven't discussed it in committee, because I would disagree. I don't think people would pay extra, but that's.
I would come down and buy the compostable bags. But,
Very good of you.
But I'm not talking, it was already a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of enforcing it, I think that's just.
But we have to buy them
such a ridiculous
anyway,
issue.
so why couldn't we have a stock for sale on the front desk?
Mhm.
And if they don't sell, we just then integrate them into that
Mhm.
dog park or whatever. So it seems to me like that's an easy to test thing.
Could be
Put an
funny to
article
get
in the newsletter.
kids, like, not calling on people per se, but, you know, it'd be funny to have like little kids on patrol everywhere if they see some dog and make sure to have a compostable bag.
How much more expensive are the compostable bags?
You know, I used to have.
They are more
them there,
expensive.
so
I
they
don't
don't
know
have
how
it.
the difference.
Like 50%,
It's considerably more.
3X?
Yeah.
A little bit more than 50%, Martin, or a
I
little
don't
bit
remember
more
what it
than
is
the
off the
other
top of my
bag.
head.
And I didn't bring all my notes, I
Okay.
have it from years ago.
But how much do we spend as a town on those bags?
Several $1,000s every year.
Okay.
So maybe you can, you are the liaison, maybe you can feed
$10,000
that to the committee.
I think 10,000.
I might,
$7,000.
I might consider.
No,
According
it's
to
much
Patrick.
more.
The problem is if those compostable
More than
bags are
10,000.
in my
That's a lot.
unsealed trash can behind me, will they deteriorate fast enough that I have a bigger problem?
Probably
No.
not.
They should not, no.
They do the trash cans every couple days,
Yeah, it's not.
so.
And they're really, the compostable bag's really designed to
I feel
stay in one piece until they're in a
Yeah.
professional commercial composter,
Okay.
so
Takes
it
a
shouldn't
while.
be falling apart.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Every 3 months,
But,
wouldn't it?
Yeah, at least.
Months.
And we have had some initial discussions with other committees as well to start looking at maybe, you know, what are the different rules that we could have in terms of helping to mitigate the dog waste problem, because we're all aware that that's, you know, an ongoing issue. So we'll see what happens with that.
There may be some things, and it's a family community, so therefore you have animals, I think maybe we should probably look at.
And we looked at different types of
Licensing,
outreach
stuff like that.
and, you know,
Well, and
could
we
we have.
talked about like the current signs with the dog bags, like are like citing the town code or something.
Mhm.
At Wanaka, they have like a sign that like explains why you should, like it contaminates our water and soil. And so we've talked briefly
Because only some of
about
them
like,
have that code on it.
yeah,
don't they?
Yeah.
talk briefly about like updating signage around the dog waste receptacles or whatever, and thinking of some other ways to encourage.
That
Yeah,
thing that was
exactly.
on Channel 8, that ad, that promotion, was very well done. And I think borrowing some of that, it was clever. And I think just the gentle prod,
Mhm.
don't do. Something like that, you know, that
Yeah.
everybody knows it.
Yeah.
They are just uninspired at the moment to do it, or if they happen not to have a bag, to go back and pick it up, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
It's funny because how it segues into us is really because of the water flow and stuff like that. Doesn't
Right.
really like actually have
Gross,
more
yeah,
than
exactly.
for the, like, the downstream people, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the one spot where it's critical is on the turf field. Williams Field, you know, I've said this in my reports, National Night Out, it was amazing, despite signage that said no pets on the field, how many pets were on the field. And then those poor kids have to play in that
Yeah.
junk the next day, you know, so that seems to me to be some, I think Prostac's on that, but it doesn't hurt to have many minds on these issues.
I think anyone who's letting their dog go on the artificial turf field, you're gonna have a tough time reaching them with anything.
That's a good
Time
one
they've
there,
done
too.
that.
Public shaming.
Yeah, there you go.
Unless you're
Post photos on
electrifying
the
the
town
field.
newsletter.
Like reward people.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Have the little kids kids
our
pop
fence.
out and be like,
Yeah.
oh, you
We
picked up your
recently
dog
put
food, here's a
fence
Starbucks
up.
cube.
Yeah.
That's actually really fun. I like that.
You're
Thanks for
helping
doing
it.
my yard clean.
Yeah.
Long list I control.
I get dark.
I love it.
The question this conversation raises for me, if I can interject, is the, basically, so ProStack's working on this, OSAC is sending stuff out.
Mhm.
The question for us is really, is it worth having a third committee spending our time on this, or do you
Right,
guys have other
exactly.
priorities?
Yeah.
No, it's really
Um, And so I would ask actually a question of the board, recognizing that
Prioritizing what we
support
do.
environmental sustainability is one of your goals on
Mhm.
the wall there. Do you guys have anything underneath that are priorities for you guys that we could help support? Like when you guys put environmental sustainability up there, what does that mean for the board members? And how can we help that?
Well, I think that's a good one. I wonder if anybody's going to answer, because they still don't have a goal set, do you?
Why are you looking at me? He's the
Because you've been around the longest, so you know what I'm talking about when I did that
There has been a
presentation.
goal set back about 2010. of
But
50%.
remember, they removed it. They took the language off and got rid of it a couple of years ago after we did the whole bag fee thing.
I think the question is still a good one in terms of where the camp goals that you all have that we can help
Yeah.
best assist with.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. We'd like to get some.
What was the goal that was removed? Out of curiosity?
Just like a diversion goal, like the town had an overall waste diversion goal. It was a high percentage, and it kind of went away by the wayside because
It didn't go by the
It
wayside.
didn't get rid
it
of
did to a certain extent, it really did. The reason I
board
say
approved
this
the
is because
resolution.
we're not doing anything to move towards it, so.
That's a different
Like-
matter than whether or not you have a goal.
But
Okay,
it's
fair
still,
enough.
it's on the books, but
Yeah.
we're not acting on it.
Because I thought the
Board approved
verbiage was removed
resolution
from the town
in
website that said.
2004, was it? Before Lisa mentioned.
Well, you're not incorrect.
Okay.
Could be.
There are some shifts, some downshifting. Is that less down when you downshift? Or do you get more power when you downshift? Whatever, you get that metaphor. We've reduced some focus on some things. You know, for example, when I first came to the board, Lisa, when you were on there, remember the big thing on, we were going to invest in a turbine, or weren't we? And that went by the wayside. That didn't pass muster for whatever reason.
And a solar thing.
And solar and other things have come our way, so I can understand where, and then the bag fee thing, you know, when that was happening in Boulder, et cetera, that was denied. So I see.
Yeah, it's just a
where-
question, because it goes back to, like, yeah, what does the town overall, you know, do you have any desire to have any sustainability measures really go forward? Because we're kind of stagnant, not doing much
Right.
to move forward. We're just kind of, as Martin said, kind of keeping everything going. And
I think one of the ongoing things is the education. I mean, there's never an end to educating people. There's always new people coming in. There's always new opportunities for people. I think the ideas we touched on earlier about xeriscaping and composting options and the different recycling options, just all of those things to continue to keep people updated. To me, that's what this committee is probably best at. We've got a lot of events year-round that there's an opportunity to interact with people, and that, to me, is the best opportunity to have that outreach.
I might
Do we have an
propose a slightly different approach where, I mean, I think those are all great things that tactically the committee should do day to day, but if we have a resolution for sustainability or to, you know, decrease total emissions by this amount or that amount or do something, I would, and we are not doing it, I would like to hear that from the committee. Or you would like us, I don't have the expertise to recommend a sustainability goal. So I can't say, yes, let's, you know, reduce X tons of carbon dioxide in the next year, you know.
Yeah.
But I would rather hear from this committee what that goal should be, and then the tactical execution of that for, you know, let's continue with education. Yeah, of course, all those things, but I'd rather do those things towards some broader goal. Absolutely. So if there's a goal that we're not achieving, if there's a resolution that's on the books that we're not achieving, or we have lost sight of a broader goal, I would love to hear from the committee what that recommendation for a broader goal would be. And then as part of doing that, yeah, we got a lot of tools in the toolbox. Education, an engaged, educated community, great volunteers, good board, I think. So we could do those things together, but from you, I'd be more,
Well, and this same vein, tonight is a very frustrating night, I think, for you guys and me. Any trustee who wants to see you guys spend your time wisely, because you're putting forth those commercial code changes and program tonight, and reading the staff memo. Staff said, no, 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 we don't support any of this as far as my reading of it. And I'm like, well, then why? Obviously, you put in hundreds of hours of work on this. And so why is that disconnect there?
Well, we have a couple of things that were recommended. Basically, the reason that there are a lot of no's is that we considered a lot of different options to figure out what would be the best fit for the town. And so the things we finally settled on are the things that were approved in the cover memo. And so the voluntary camp pilot project that we'll talk about later in terms of the commercial measures. And then also looking at adopting the most current energy code as well, so that we can.
But I think they suggested not to do that. Now, it's up to the board.
No, I think that's not correct. I don't think that's entirely correct.
I thought they suggest staying with the current IIE.
No, they said they're already implementing the new one, the 2015, so.
But we think they should jump straight to the 2017.
I thought they were implementing the one prior to that.
Well, we can get into that in a little bit.
But the point is to have the connection,
right,
so that the committee is spending their time in a fashion that's going to produce results rather than hit a brick wall.
I hear that, but I also say that, and the reason why some of these things haven't been, there haven't been mandates implemented and things like that, is that we're a small town. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at it in a practical manner, pragmatic manner. What can you actually do? We can say we want to reduce 8 billion tons of carbon dioxide, or we, or whatever, or we want to get 25% or 50% everything recycled. But we have looked at, over the years, many different ways to try and go towards that goal. And that's all we can do, is what can we do to go towards it? We can't come here and say, I think we should do 50% recycling, automatic, everything has to be, because it may not be practical to get there. So you guys, I think, are doing a great job in looking at what could we do to help, as the mayor said, educate people, keep people aware. I'm doing more recycling now than I ever would have imagined I would do. And we're just now basically a 2-person household, but it's amazing if you really start concentrating on it and people make you aware, then you can do a lot more than you ever expected before. But I think just because in 2004, we might have set some resolution for a percentage, if we just can't physically get there because of the size of our town, then I don't think we should say, well, we got to do whatever we have to do to make that, because we're never going to get there.
Well, I have two questions and 2 points where I think we can actually make some meaningful change without it being like a board implemented process. And number one is with electric vehicles, number 2 is with solar. So I would like to see, number 1 is with electric vehicles, and number 2 is with solar. So I would like to see a census. So a census of residents that actually have solar panels in their house. The price of solar is just getting cheaper and cheaper. You can't leave, Costco or Home Depot without, somebody trying to sell you on solar these days. So I think that's one of the things. There may be this myth about what it used to cost, but now when people look at their Excel bills and with the rebates that you can get through Excel and just the total savings, I think that's an opportunity, low-hanging fruit, to just kind of go out, educate the public about, and this is something you can do. When Rock Creek was first built, we had restrictions by state law and through the HOA that we couldn't have solar panels, but now state law has been changed, so we can have solar panels. So I think a census would be good, just to know kind of what percentage of residents in the town have it, and then just some education about this is what putting an array on your house would actually look like. Google actually has a really interesting solar map. You've probably seen it, where you can put in your residence and you can see how well suited your house is for solar, depending on
It's what the solar companies use to do their initial estimation.
It's really cool. So I think
ours is going in on June 10th.
So I think doing something like that would be really educational, really fun for people to just kind of look at, and then just see like, okay, it's going to cost me whatever, $15,000 or $20,000 to put this on, and I'm going to recoup it over X number of years. And then number two, with electric vehicles, I know that there was a tax credit that I think Boulder County had one, and then also the state had one with like buying a Nissan Leaf. It was
It's actually, yeah.
The group buy, yeah.
yeah. So buying a Nissan Leaf like ended up you'd save like $15,000.
You still can actually. They
Yeah, they
slightly
extended it
adjusted it
for-
for this year.
yeah.
They changed it because Nissan itself was given the rebate last year, so now they've changed it. Excel Energy is actually partnering with them this year
Right.
and giving $10,000 off, and then the state of Colorado is giving you direct $5,000 straight back
Right.
on your taxes.
So I
and
mean,
there's the Boulder County
even
thing.
people who are not necessarily environmentally motivated, they have other motivations. They could be economically motivated. If I was in the market for a new car, I'd be buying a Nissan Leaf right now based on just the amount that you can get kicked back. No, I mean it's just a good buy. It's a good buy, and they're cool cars, and you know they.
You're not a car. We're going to talk about your
Yeah,
car.
he,
but
my 2006 cars. These are low-hanging fruits, and you know we can market it out to the public in a way that I think people will really appreciate getting the knowledge, and that's one way that we're not dependent upon the town or the board actually implementing it in policy. It's just where each resident on an individual basis can do something to actually you know, be more environmentally friendly and more sustainable.
Can I just, I was going to say that solar installations require building permits and require approval from the HOA, so it's very easy to get the numbers.
Yeah.
You know, the building department can pull those
moments.
easily. And just for the record, we have some minor architectural guidelines, but there are no restrictions from the HOA, just so you understand that.
Not anymore.
And we,
Yeah.
well, I haven't been for many years,
Yeah.
but we.
But I'm saying that the
Your point was
legacy of
correct.
the
It
We
was.
approve many every
Yeah.
And
month.
people remember that.
I mean, the good thing is our ongoing monthly stuff in the newsletter usually covers like the leaf and pushing and stuff like that, you know, the information and incentives that are available through county.
You mean the
I wonder-
Sentinel? Oh.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Sentinel.
sorry, the town one. And I think the thing is, one of the reasons this came up is because the town has never tackled commercial, really, in terms of energy savings. We've never had
And
these
this is the
rules.
window.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah,
was part of
exactly.
the problem.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get back to what Rita was talking about, sorry. Yes. Trustee, yes.
No, that's fine. This is Rita.
Was getting that. I'm
She's
not-
Rita Dallas.
Sorry. And you raised a really good point. Yes, there maybe is kind of whatever, whether there's a goal. And yes, we do bring lots of ideas forward, but we do try to recognize that the town can't do certain things, but small towns can do more things in other areas. So it's a real mix. But for instance, it'd be lovely to say, you know, you get one shot at construction and demolition debris. And that's when the thing is built, you know, and you should definitely get that recycled. But we can't propose that in a town or a region where there isn't a C&D, you know, facility. So we do take all that into account as we're putting forward ideas. This approach that we've come forward with today is one that is a compromise of a ton of ideas that were brought forward and winnowing them out and saying, well, you know, maybe we should take some baby steps, or maybe we should test this or whatever first, as opposed to biting off the biggest piece. So I think that's why it's said a lot of no's, because we came up with big ideas and then settled on medium ideas to hopefully expand to bigger ideas should they work.
And what
So-
fit for the small town and the cost, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some things that just don't make sense. I mean, like, we looked at a green building code, for example, and, you know, if you look at the evidence, there's just not a whole lot of evidence in existence that it really provides significant benefits over just a more energy efficient code, for example. So, you know, it probably doesn't make sense for the town to spend a whole lot of money working on retraining everyone to this, you know, very tight standard if the benefits aren't going to be there.
And we
So we should
definitely don't want to
definitely
reinvent the wheel, and we'd avoid that at all.
Exactly,
costs.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think some of the staff knows were also committee recognition that like it was a unfeasible solution.
Yeah.
So
Caitlin
we're in
mentions a
agreement.
good point. The committee actually went through a feasibility exercise with our consultant, Sharon Procopi, over the last couple of months. Just think about what would make sense given the size and scale of the impact versus the resources that the board has dedicated to this. And having something that focused on the low-hanging fruit was really what made sense. And then having the marketing through the newsletter of the solar programs has been great.
Yeah.
So there's definitely been, the needle has moved forward. I guess that would be the take-home point for anybody.
So we have a hotel that's coming in, you know, the Element Hotel, and so RCAC I think should be there at the ribbon cutting for that hotel, because that whole hotel is sustainably designed. I mean, it's bamboo floors and it's LED lighting all around. I mean, if that's the type of thing that you want on a commercial basis, we've got a perfect example of something that's meeting, I think, RCAC's goals.
And that's one of the things we're considering even looking at, as well as benchmarking, so that we can provide recognition, which is basically free to good, energy efficient companies. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'm sorry to interject. We do have a couple of advisory committee interviews to conduct this evening, so we are going to have to wrap up this dinner and kind of convert the room back into meeting mode, and we'll look forward to hearing from you all at the presentation segment. Thank you. Okay, Martin, ready to get rolling? All right, to continue our work session, we have a couple of interviews for the Superior Youth Leadership Council. Martin, you want to introduce?
Thank you, Mayor. The Superior Youth Leadership Council has a couple of openings. And then with some transition with the end of the school year and some recruiting efforts that will ramp up over the next couple months, we have 3 candidates that are interested in being interviewed tonight. And I'm not going to butcher their names, but if all 3 of you would mind coming up, the board can have a couple of questions. And it can be up to the microphone.
Yeah, if y'all come up to just crowd in there to the microphone. Maybe introduce yourselves one at a time. Maybe just give us a few little seconds about yourself. Maybe where you go to school and kind of what made you interested in Youth Leadership Council, and then we'll fire away with questions.
Okay. I'm Tia Merheb. I live over on Vernon Lane by Superior Elementary School. I went to Superior Elementary School and El Dorado Middle School, and I now go to Fairview High School. And then I was interested in the Superior Youth Leadership Council because I like to go to all of the events that Superior hosts, and I like to volunteer at them too. So I thought it would be fun to collaborate with people that also like to do the same stuff. And I actually just got a job working for the town of Superior, and that's how I heard about it, and I thought it was a really cool opportunity to try it out.
Great.
I'm Laura Ruby, and I also live on Vernon Lane. I went to Superior Elementary, El Dorado, and I now go to Fairview, and I'm part of Fairview Student Council. And I have a couple friends that are in the Leadership Council, so I thought it would be a really cool opportunity to collaborate with them and take my skills from Student Council and bring them to Superior.
Hi, I'm a little close. I'm Alexander Bright. I've lived in Superior my whole life. I currently am a junior at Monarch High School. And I found out about the council. I have a few friends in it, like her. And I've always enjoyed volunteering, helping out with the projects around town, and I wanted another way to kind of grow that, I guess, and help more. So I thought this would be an interesting opportunity.
Great. Well, we appreciate all of your interest in joining. So thank you. Let's have questions from the board.
I have a question. First, evening. Thank you for volunteering. Laura, I think it was your application, but I could ask any of you this question. One thing that you commented on the application was how you wanted to help us advertise the events more. I got stuck in some road diversion this weekend. I suspect others did as well as a result of the Morgul Classic. We got an email or two as the board. We probably didn't advertise that very well. So not necessarily using the Morgul bike race as an example, but how might you as members of the Leadership Council recommend we advertise events in advance?
Well, I think a lot of my peers use like Instagram or Facebook, and I think that would be an awesome way to kind of advertise the things we do and to get the word out, because I know a lot of people are on those social media sites, so that would be a super easy way to get the word out and to get more people involved.
She took the easy answer, social media. She the good answer, but social media, excellent. Any other? You all don't have to respond.
I just know I always like it when the word gets out about like the community park movies with just like signs on the side of the road, or even like the Easter egg hunt. So like even just like a little sign on every few blocks that said like upcoming race this weekend or something like that.
Another idea could be like little slips in the mailbox. That way everybody sees it when they go check their mail every day.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for volunteering, and I'm curious to know what each of you are doing this summer.
First of all, I'm trying to get on the Monarch High School hockey team next year, so I'll be training for that. And I'm also helping my friend. He does contracting work, so I'm going to help him with that this summer.
I just got hired through Tennis Superior to be one of the tennis coaches down by the North Pool, and then I'm also going to be playing tennis by myself.
I'm on Fairview Palm, so I practice for that all summer, and then I'm also a babysitter, so I do that a lot of the summer.
I think 2 out of the 3, and maybe all 3 of you said one of your goals with Silk, S-Y-L-C, Silk, is to increase activities for teens. Now, what we've seen so far is Silk is really important in helping at townwide events. But I don't know that I can remember an activity that they put together expressly for teens. So here's an idea. It's free. A new sand volleyball pit over at Wildflower Park, possibly putting together a teen competitive event on that. You could even use the other one, and then the finals or somewhere, preferably at Wildflower, because I live right there. But see what I'm talking about? Because I think it's great for you guys to help with all these other big events. It's been really nice, but also then to have events with teens themselves. So I'd like you to come back when you're giving some reports and things eventually, and let us know what you're doing to put events that are teen-centric. Okay? You have any ideas on that front?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. That'd be awesome. I love that.
You do?
Yeah. And I think, like, the movie nights are more towards a lot of, like, younger kids. I know a lot of younger, like, elementary school and middle school kids to go to that. So I think more things that are near, like, the high school range of kids would be really awesome. And that comes in with, like, the social media again, that we can use that as a platform to tell kids what we're doing and to get them more involved.
Right.
So I have a question for you. When you talk about using social media, the town of Superior has a Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And just out of the top of your head, how many of you actually think any of your peers are hooked into that from a Facebook standpoint? Or do we need to have a Superior sort of youth Facebook page? Because I'm sure you guys probably aren't caring too much about recycling events or, you know. So would it be of value to have something that was more geared toward young people?
I think one of the issues is, like, I know a lot of my age group doesn't use Facebook, and I think that comes with, like, a lot of how my age group isn't really involved. So I think we need to go on a platform more like Instagram, because I know almost all of my friends use that. And Facebook, like, I have to use that for student council, but I remember all the new freshmen that came into student council, none of them had Facebook. They all had to make it to join our student council. So I think that making something that's more accessible and that more kids are on would be better.
And another thing that could help out is get the members of the council, the youth council, to kind of like go around school and let people know. That's another effective way. Person-to-person talking, that works too.
I personally, I'm also on Fairview Student Council. So I have my Facebook only for Student Council, and I also go on sometimes the 80027 page. So I think that personally, if we were going to branch out, like they were talking about, onto other social media places, we could use like the 8027 page and the Town of Superior page to kind of advertise also for other places, and then just kind of branch it out into more sites and ways of getting it around.
Thank you.
Good. Are there any questions you all have of us? No? Okay. Very good. Well, again.
Conflicts?
Oh, yes. I have this question that I have to ask all applicants for all committees, and that is if you, do you have any potentials for conflict of interest, such as you had a side business doing business with the town or something like that?
Or your parents own an ice cream shop and you want to hold an ice cream.
That's right. Yeah. You want to divert business to the ice cream shop. Okay. All right. Good. You've cleared. Good to go. All right. Thanks for coming in, and we'll be acting on your application soon. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
And it's kind of amazing, isn't it, when you have an applicant said he's lived here all of his life.
That is.
You know, yeah. Because for some of us that came here when Superior was virtually just the original town and nothing else, it's kind of fun to have somebody who's actually grown up here. So it's really good. Yeah.
We do houses all in Superior.
Yeah.
So
That's great. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So we don't have a town. We don't have a town Instagram, right? We don't have a town Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexander.
We need to get a town Instagram and a town Snapchat.
All right. Let's take 5 minutes, and we'll be back for the regular meeting at 7.
I wrote this down. This has come up numerous times. I think it needs to.
Instagram,
we need
yeah.
to do Instagram.
Another thing. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for Monday, May 22nd, 2017. Could we please have the roll call? Or, I'm sorry, we have the Pledge of Allegiance first. And let's all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And as we please remain standing afterwards, we're going to have a moment of silence for a terrorist attack that we've just learned about in London that apparently a lot of people have lost their lives for. I'd like to just acknowledge that and remain standing afterwards. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Phyllis, could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Clint Folsom.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Trustees Rita Dozell.
Here.
Sandy Hammerly. Here. Chris Hansen. Mark Lasis.
Here.
Kevin Ryan.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Assistant Town Manager Martin Toth.
Here.
Town Clerk Phil Sargent here.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any items on the agenda we'd like to pull from the consent agenda or change on the agenda? Sandy?
I'd like to pull 12C.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended with 12C pulled?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Pennington, second by Trustee Lasis. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start? Kevin?
I'll go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments this evening all have a theme: safety. The Colorado State Patrol kicked off a campaign called Click It or Ticket. Not wearing a seatbelt is a dangerous decision. Now it could be an expensive decision. Tickets will be issued without warning. For parents and caregivers, this is important, especially for the really little ones who are dependent upon us to get buckled up. I looked today to make sure our local fire station offered car seat safety checks. They are not listed in the Boulder County resource book, so we'll work with staff offline to see what we can do to make sure they are in fact participating, or if they are, get them listed into the resource book. Louisville Fire Department on via Appia does offer car seat safety checks. Second, it is the last week of school, so you'll see a lot more kids out there during the day when they're not under the close supervision of their crossing guard. So please slow down as you're in your vehicle. I worry about, in particular, the kids on bikes. I know my kids are out all day on bikes. They don't make the most predictable turns when riding on the streets, so give them as much cushion as possible as you're passing them in your car on the road. And finally, the safety of the community. I read that the lawsuit that Mr. Weiner referred to preventing the construction of trails and a visitor center for Rocky Flats Wildlife Refuge has now been filed. As I learn more about the plans for the perimeter, the more concerned I become. In recent years, there's been a movement at the local, state, and federal level to increase the level of transparency within our government and how our tax dollars are spent. The DOE and Fish and Wildlife Service seem to think they're exempt from this collaboration. The sharing sessions, and I put that in quotes, that they have that have prohibited public comment, and the lack of clear transparency in how the funds have been appropriated for the visitor center are not consistent with the promises we on this board have made to the community. I encourage everyone to write their federally elected officials with a request to halt the design and construction of the trails, and especially the visitor center, until adequate analysis has been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita?
Sorry, I hadn't pulled it up yet because thought you were going to go on a little longer, Kevin. Okay, May 12th, I attended a Women Transforming Government luncheon held by Deloitte Consulting, and it was a very interesting luncheon in the History Museum downtown Denver. And we heard experiences from successful women in government and national defense. And what you recognize is still that women are very underrepresented in government and defense organizations. And so a lot of people are trying to figure out what we can do, all of us together, men and women, to help increase the representation by women in the government entities and also in the area of national defense. So what the three women that were speaking there that had great backgrounds in these areas of defense and government said that we really must build upon the work that others have done before us, or the groundbreaking leaders that are there. But real transformation will not come until we find that men and women listen to each other in the same way, because men and women don't hear each other equally, generally, for the most part. And so we need to do a better job of listening and hearing what each other are saying, because we talk differently and we express ourselves differently. So that shouldn't allow us to discount what is being said just because we aren't listening in the same manner that we may have if we're listening to our same sex. So please, let's listen to each other, hear each other, before we start throwing away what's being said by those people. On May 17th, I attended the Dr. Cog Finance Committee and Board meeting, And I want to remind people that the Bike to Work Day is coming up Wednesday, June 28th. And the goal of this year's Bike to Work Day is 34,000 riders. And last year we were second only to San Francisco as far as participation went. So this year we're trying to actually go past and blow past the goal. And so beat San Francisco and have more riders than they had. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy?
I'll go next. I attended the PROSTEC meeting on May 17th. PROSTEC Chair Peter Bottomley will be here to discuss, but one of the concerns that came up during the meeting was regarding the use of the tennis courts here in Superior. In particular, the concern is that our tennis courts, basically anybody can walk in at any time and use them, and there are a lot of concerns that they're being used by folks from outside Superior, and so Superior folks cannot get on them. There was also a concern raised that Monarch High School tennis teams are using our courts exclusively for practice and are not using courts in Louisville, even though the young people are from there. And so that's limiting the ability of just regular citizens to use the courts. The case that was brought in point is with our pools, you have to have a pass, there's a checkpoint, and so we do control access to the pools. So there will be something coming from PROSTEC, some recommendations tonight, and I have to say that I appreciate the comments that were brought forth by the PROSTEC member, because not being a tennis player, I never thought about it, but we do have limited tennis courts, and I know for a fact that I have friends from Louisville who come over and use our courts all the time. So anyway, look forward to hearing from Peter later tonight. The committee also began discussing upgrades on the skate park at the South Pool. It's in pretty rough repair right now. More and more children seem to have an interest in it, but because it's in such poor shape, PROSTEC would like to see us consider not only repairing it, but upgrading it. But during the meeting, it became pretty apparent that there's some confusion within PROSTEC, and I'm not even surprised throughout the town, of the limited resources we have to do some of the recreation upgrades because of the fact that we need to repay ourselves for the build out of Wildflower Park. And so I just want to remind the community that the board made a very concerted decision to borrow against the Open Space Fund to build out Wildflower Park, but the town will be paying the Open Space Fund back. And that was a really amazing and exciting commitment that the board made. But because of that, we will have some limited ability to do a lot of sort of capital improvements over the next several years. So I just want to remind people that that's a fact. I attended the library board meeting on May 11th. Library Director Beth Barrett provided an overview of the impact that some of the federal government proposed cuts could have on the Louisville Library due to cuts in funding. Some of the things that could disappear are the Colorado Talking Book Library for those who are unable to read standard print materials due to visual, physical, or learning disability. One Book for Colorado, which provides a free library book to every 4-year-old in our area, and some of the subsidized digitizing services that have gone on. Now, we learned later last week that our Colorado delegation has thrown support behind the Library Services Act, but that does not mean that we will not see some substantial cuts to services at our library. After a conversation that occurred at the last Joint Issues Committee, we have the go-ahead to establish a Superior Library Task Force to bring together citizens to just help us bring services of the library into Superior. And so after working with town staff will be reaching out to the public to see if there are folks that would be interested in helping with this. It's not an official advisory committee of the town. It's just a task force of the library board that would help us bring library services to town. So be on the lookout for that. The library has begun participation in the Chamber Rooftop Drop to create greater awareness and provide outreach to our citizens regarding the services of the library. The library has committed that they will have a presence this year at Chili Fest. Business librarian Sean Lamborn will be there, as well as several board members. We're also hoping that the Library Foundation does sale of old books, and that maybe we can do some sales of books at the Chili Fest. And then the last thing I want to call everybody's attention to is that information on the library's summer reading program for children's, teens, and adults should go live on their website the end of the month. Last year we had 169 children from El Dorado K-8 and 92 from Superior Elementary who participated in the library's summer reading program. So obviously that's something that is benefiting our citizens. And then the other thing is the library has a partnership with Boulder Valley School District, a part of the summer school program at Monarch K-8. And that would be it.
Thank you. Mark?
Okay, thank you. On Wednesday, May 10th, I attended the OSAC meeting. And so OSAC recently just went through their reprioritization of the open space acquisition plan, and they, I really want to commend OSAC under the leadership of Ken Lish. Each of the OSAC members visited each of the parcels that have historically been prioritized as potential acquisition targets, and then they went through the process of voting and ranking each of the parcels to see where there was common ground, and put together a listing, which they're going to be reporting to us in the future. But the undisputed top three acquisition targets were, and it's not really surprising, but level 3 remains the top. Rogers Farm was number 2, regardless of any development applications, obviously. And then the Zaharias property was number 3, and that was the overwhelming consensus in terms of what OSAC would like us to prioritize. And it was just a great meeting, and I really want to commend OSAC for all the hard work and dedication that they took to actually visiting all those properties and evaluating it, and they really did a diligent job in terms of the things that they considered in terms of how it would fit into the overall open space plan here in town, and just how people could enjoy it. So hats off to OSAC. Also sponsored by OSAC is coming up on Saturday, June 3rd, is National Trails Day, which will be at the Colton Trailhead. OSAC will be there. We'll have hawks and snakes. So hopefully we'll have some government officials there willing to wrap themselves around in snakes. I know the mayor's done that before. So
I'm all over it. I'm there.
A couple of additional announcements. On June 5th, we're going to be having a Traffic and Safety Committee meeting. There'll be a mailer going out to the people that live in the neighborhood of, around Weldona. The purpose of that meeting will be to talk to the public about issues and traffic calming measures and things that we can do to avoid and reduce cut-through traffic on Weldona. We're not planning to actually execute on anything right now. This is just kind of a discussion point to see what does the community want. So, if you live in that area, if you're affected by 88th, Weldona, I encourage you to attend the meeting on June 5th, talk at public comment, and really be a part of the process. A couple of additional events. Friday, June 9th, is the Jeff and Paige concert, also sponsored by OSAC. Thanks to the board's leadership, we'll be having Sweet Cow there for all the kids for free. So come on out and see Jeff and Paige. And then lastly, I just wanted to report on, I had a couple of questions from some residents about the broadband initiative. So as many of you may know, the broadband initiative passed in the November election, and as a result of that, we hired an independent consultant to do a feasibility study. Many of you were contacted via the survey that they participated in, and that process is kind of winding its way down. They've completed their study. They're going to be reporting to the board their findings at the second meeting in June, so June 26th. Where they'll be coming to the board with a proposal recommendation for how we can move forward. So if you have any interest in broadband, make sure that you attend the June 26th meeting and speak at public comment. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy?
First, building on what Kevin said about Rocky Flats, I wanted to commend some of the activist groups, Rocky Flats Right to Know, Candelas Glows, Rocky Flats Glows, and other activist groups who actually, under the guidance of attorney Randall Weiner, filed a lawsuit to keep Fish and Wildlife Service and Department of Energy honest about abiding by their NEPA obligations to study the environmental impact out there before they turn soil and potentially expose us all to plutonium that is carried in the air. Secondly, I attended the fourth of the sharing sessions, which is a gross misnomer, because 3 of the 4 have disallowed pretty blatantly any public participation in them under threat of being escorted out by an armed guard. And rarely do I gasp after 7 years at this, but I gasp whenever that is said. If you dare to disagree, you will be escorted out by that armed guard over there. So compliments to the town of Superior, who has never resorted to that. But what this one was on is the all-important topic of safety. And you had 3 federal agencies, DOE, Fish and Wildlife, EPA, and 1 state agency, the Colorado Department of Public Health, tell us how safe it was. And I was very complimentary of the nonviolent protests there of people holding wrong signs up quietly, or no when they felt a misstatement was being made, and they as well had signs out in quiet protest outside the meeting. We indeed do have to be concerned about the stated plan to break dirt on a visitors center as early as next month out there. I've got a feeling it's delayed, but this visitors center was supposed to sort of be a kiosk before, and now it's a 3,500 square foot visitors center, which is anywhere from 3.5 to 5 times the max size that was put together in any of the compatibility determinations that were done back in 2000-ish time frame when this was being conceived of. So I couldn't agree more with Kevin that we've got to stay vigilant and we've got to stay active. I take very seriously my role as an elected official to keep the residents of this town safe. So you're going to hear a lot more from me about Rocky Flats. Second meeting I attended was the Rocky Mountain Greenway, which is the 83-mile trail connecting 3 Superfund sites from the Rocky Mountain Arsenal to 2 ponds to Rocky Flats up to Rocky Mountain National Park. The Greenway has its own merits and demerits, but the biggest demerit is the fact that it's probably going to go through Rocky Flats. And according to the current alignment, it's going to go the long way through Rocky Flats rather than just cutting over a corner, which is one reason why we've got to keep an eye on it and why I attended the meeting. And then, so a couple of things that various people need to know. One, Ken, your group needs to be aware that as the proposed route, as you come off Rocky Flats on 128, the preferred connection is with our Colton Trailhead, through Colton Trail and through the Colton Trailhead. I don't know if your group will think that's good or bad, but that seems to be the preferred route. It looks like they're going to have a dual connection, one to High Plains Trail, one to Colton Trailhead. So that was discussed there. Very positive thing that emanated from that meeting was several Boulder County officials came up to me, and I talked with Matt Magley. He's going to arrange a meeting with Broomfield, Superior, and Boulder County to work actively on a safe route around Rocky Flats for people who want to come off the Boco Trail, the Broomfield Trail, and Town of Superior trails to circumvent the flats, but still be able to take advantage of the 83-mile Greenway. So I wanted to let you know that that is an active discussion as well, Ken. Last Friday I went to Senator Michael Bennett's town hall. It was, given all the scuttlebutt about the town halls around the nation, this town hall was a very informative and very pleasant event. There was some dissent there, a little yelling and all that kind of stuff, but I really have to commend Senator Bennett for such a great manner. I'm not sure I've heard him speak before, but he has a great manner and is able to bridge all kinds of opinions to still have a very civil event. I wanted to commend staff. 2 weeks ago, the weekly digest you prepare for the town board to keep us apprised of issues was very well done. And not that they're all not, but this had like 4 such topical issues that have to be addressed. One is the inability to work something out at El Dorado K-8 to put turf in there. So I wanted to throw out the possibility that that would be something, as we're considering for Parks 1 and 2 at Town Center. Could we possibly advance that money, or could we possibly pay for that turf there as a town and have the opportunity to use it on non-school hours to expand our turf-related sports programming or activity programming? So we've been talking about helping convert that turf since I've been on the board got here in 2010. And I just don't want to let that one go if we can possibly make it work. So maybe that, Sandy, is something ProStat needs to help take up too, because I think it's a commendable goal. Graffiti at Wildflower Park breaks my heart, kids. Wonderful. What is it? What did it turn out to be? $3 million amenity. And this is where I really think we've got to use our youth leadership group to apply peer pressure to their peers to take care of the resources we put out there for them. So if somebody needs to appear in front of the Youth Leadership Council to sort of galvanize them behind that issue and have them as our feet on the street to help that. But anyway, do we lock it, Martin, at night? Do we lock the bathrooms at the parks at night?
Yes, the bathrooms there have an automatic lock facility.
So were they broken into, or how were they?
Sometimes they can be, I don't know
Jimmy?
what the word is, compromised. If somebody holds the lock, it's an automatic lock, automatic lock sensor. Somebody's already in it, they're already in it.
So they're really trying hard to get in there.
You have to know when the,
wow, that's even more disconcerting, actually. And then we had some numbers given in that report about how expensive it is for an animal control officer which has been considered because people refuse to abide by the leash laws in this town. And it's caused a lot of neighbor-to-neighbor conflicts and animal-to-animal conflicts. And I just want to put out a request that we all do what's right. Obey the law, keep our animals on leash, and please, if your neighbor chooses to complain about you not abiding by the law, would you please not take it out on your neighbor? This is the law, and until the town changes it, you got to abide by it. Wanted to remind everyone, June 1st is your deadline for contesting your property assessment, property tax assessments. And then wanted to compliment our recycling committee. We all had dinner tonight with our recycling committee, and they do a lot of good work for this town. The initiatives we have with recycling, sustainability, greenness, hazardous waste, all that kind of stuff comes from that group. So thank you for your hard work. That's all.
All done? Okay, thank you. Last Friday, I went to Superior Elementary School and got to speak to all of the third graders in 4 different classes, discuss the role of local government, and it was a great way to kind of close out the school year with the elementary schools. visiting with students. And today I was honored to be able to introduce Colonel Robin Hamasaki, who's our principal at El Dorado K-8. And she was having a retirement celebration for her retirement of 30 years of service as a colonel in the United States Army, and had a big ceremony at Pearl Harbor to honor her service. So the school organized a surprise assembly, and I wanted to thank Rocky Mountain Fire for providing a fire truck to pick her up and drive her away from the school, with the entire student body rounding the parking lot. So it was a great event, a great assembly, and then it was a great event and a great way to kind of involve the fire department in the program. And a little more follow-up on, Sandy, your comments about the turf field at El Dorado. I've been involved in those discussions with Principal Hamasaki as well, and just kind of disappointed that the money didn't show up on the school district side for that. Last year I was at an event at Platt Middle School in Boulder and was talking to one of the parents there, and I'm admiring this new turf field and the running track around it. And one of the parents said, yeah, all the middle schools are getting these as a part of the bond issue. And I just got really excited, thinking, okay, well, and then, after digging into it further, no, we're not getting a running track, and no, we're not getting a turf field. And I think we badly need those amenities. So the question is, could the town participate? What would it look like? I think the answer from the school district is it's going to be a long time, probably another bond issue before any money comes from that side. So the question is, do we want to front the money for that, and what does that look like? So because it's probably not going to be any kind of partnership sharing money. So all right, a couple of announcements. Upcoming events: May 27th, the outdoor pool is open for the season. We've talked about June 4th, there's National Trails Day. June 10th, CAPS parties in the park, 3 to 5 p.m. June 14th, kicks off Superior Youth Leadership Council Community Park Storytime, also doing that on July 12th and August 9th. Jeff and Paige concert on June 16th, and then June 24th is the Superior Youth Leadership Council Cosmic Skate Night at Sports Stable, ice skating with fog, lasers, and music. That sounds like a good time. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's June 9th. Jeff and Paige.
June 9th.
Ken, is it the 16th?
16th.
Oh, okay.
I was wrong.
I was wrong.
Okay. All right. Got that settled. Okay. Announcements from town manager or assistant town manager?
Thank you, Mayor. No.
Okay. Town attorney?
No, thank you.
Town clerk? None. Okay. All right, we'll move on now to public comment. If there's anyone in the public that would like to make any public comment, just give a little wave and I'll signal you to come up to public comment. Peter?
Peter Bottomley, ProSec Chair. Trustee Hammerly summarized a little bit the two things I wanted to speak about, but at the ProSec meeting last Wednesday evening, we made two recommendations to the board, and since those aren't going to be in the meeting notes, won't be in the packet for another couple weeks, I just wanted to address them this evening. The first being the tennis courts. The committee would like to recommend that signage be added to the North Pole tennis courts, stating that the courts are for resident use only, and the schedules for all tennis programming, including private lessons, be posted outside the courts 1 week in advance. And hopefully the combination of these two things can avoid some of the frustration and conflicts that there have been with residents that want to use the courts and are being turned away, and sometimes that's felt because there's non-residents or these user groups that are using them. We did not include in that motion the Monarch Junior Varsity use of the courts, but we did discuss it at length. And as Trustee Hammerly stated, we would like staff to look at whether Monarch is equally using the Louisville courts, since the student base is at least 50% Louisville. It only seems fair that the larger the two municipalities is being looked at for court usage and not just the town of Superior. The other recommendation we made was regarding playground improvements. And last year we had made a recommendation that an embankment slide be installed at Pirate Park, which is in the south end of Rock Creek, bordering the Coyote Ridge open space area. And we were working with the $35,000 that was set aside from the Conservation Trust Fund money for playground improvements. But when the design for that embankment slide was completed, it was going to cost more like $60,000 for that project. And so it did not get done last year. We had briefly talked about this at the ProStac dinner with the board back in January, that $35,000 was being very difficult to work with as far as, there's very few projects that we've looked at in the last couple of years that fall under $35,000. And we were asked to essentially come back to the board with a request if we had a project that was going to be more than the $35,000. So our recommendation this year, and hopefully it would be out of this year's budget, would be for completion of that same embankment slide project at Pirate Park. But ideally, that would also be done in connection with that would be the trail connector from Pirate Park into the Coyote Ridge Loop that had been discussed separately in the expedited trails that were done in the design phase last year. So those two, the embankment slide and the trail, probably around $70,000 is what I'm being told by staff. So the request from ProStac is that the board consider funding that this year. If it's not funded this year, we'll probably make that request next year. But that was the one thing that Trustee Hammerly said, is that there was some confusion over, even myself, I thought that $35,000 was available to us this year. Apparently it's not. That has been turned over to repay the Wildflower Park project. And so the playground improvements that we were hoping to make currently don't have a funding source. So if it's, if you're not able to do it this year, it doesn't sound like we'll have the $35,000 next year. So we'll be making a separate budget request for either this project or possibly improvements to the South Pole Skate Park for next year's budget, since we don't have the $35,000 to work with. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Teresa Clark, a Superior resident, and I apologize for my confusion because the budget for landscaping the buffer was supposed to be on the agenda tonight, and then I thought I heard it was approved, and is this the time for me to speak or not?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Thank
it's a
you.
consent agenda item, so.
Okay, because I've had conflicting reports on when I can speak. So residents are happy that at last the final step in the process to have the wildlife buffer, the corridor, budget approved. And I've been training with my children to run the Boulder, and the training's going very well for them and not so well for me. So I'm a little short of breath all the time right now. We moved into our house in 2013, and at that point in time, residents had really hard feelings about the excavation that was happening in the buffer, and the heavy equipment that was being parked in the buffer. And subsequently, they notified town staff, and then town staff had hard feelings about the whole process too, because they heard the brunt of the anger from residents. And then as residents came to protest their anger before the Town Board of Trustees, the Town Board of Trustees was angry and upset as well. So all three components of our community were at odds with each other. And I'm grateful for the opportunity of this because it gave me, well, since 2013 to now, it gave me the opportunity to watch a lot of other issues in our community get resolved or not get resolved. And one of the things about this issue that makes me grateful to live here in Superior is that for the first and only time I've been watching this since 2013, residents and staff, and I wish we could come up with another name for staff because I feel that word's a little condescending towards what they do for us, but residents and staff and the Town Board of Trustees in the various iterations that we've had since 2013 have all worked together to come to a solution that started out with only acrimony and only bitterness and anger to where residents are pleased with our government in both terms of elected officials and staff, and let's get another name for them when we can. So I'm here to express my gratitude that I live here, number one, and I'm hoping that we can use this as a model in the future. I understand that the annexation agreement, which was the memorialization of the intent of the Board of Directors in 1998, was pretty ill-written. Trust me, I've read it maybe 100 times. And I'm grateful that this board was able to understand the intent of what the board then wanted regarding the community. So, thank you, and we look forward to trees and the future forward after this issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good evening. Susan Bauer, 1770 Morrison Court, Superior. In December, I stood before you and thanked you for the full restoration of the reservoir. And I mentioned at that time that I got involved with the county in the aquatic waterfowl program, counting the species out there, and we learned that there was many more species and varieties than we anticipated out at the Hutch and Harris Reservoir. Since January, I've spoken with OSAC, POSAC, PROSTAC, Southern Plains Land Trust, and Boulder County Audubon, just to initiate a conversation about how to evaluate whether or not an asset has unique attributes. And Boulder County Audubon suggested that we conduct a bird study, or bird breeding study. And it was something that didn't need to go through any organization. Just as citizens, we could organize it and initiate it. So on May 6th, Steve Jones from Boulder County Audubon came out and conducted a training class on how to conduct a bird breeding study. And we were hoping for 6 to 9 participants. We had 14. And as of right now, we have 10 people that are helping with the study. It will run through June, probably early part of July, after which time we will put together a report and it will be presented to Boulder County Audubon, and it will be shared with OSAC and the town as well, but to help evaluate what do we have out there that may be of interest or not, to help quantify and qualify what is out there. So I just wanted to make you aware that I had done this because I don't like to do things without being transparent. And at the last coffee meeting, I didn't have a chance to mention what I was up to. So I'd also like to add on to what Trustee Lasix has said about OSAC and their recent meeting where they reviewed their comprehensive plan for parcel acquisition as far as prioritization for acquisition. I was really impressed with the qualitative analysis that each committee member went through and their very thoughtful and conscientious comments. Each member went out and walked each parcel and pulled out all the qualitative analysis from the comprehensive plan and scored each parcel based on views and green belts and wildlife and access. It was a very thoughtful process, and I was just really impressed with the work of that committee, so I wanted to add on to that. Okay, any questions?
Thank you for the
Thank you.
updates. Ken?
Good evening, Ken Lish. Good evening, Ken Lish, OSAC Chair. Just want to say thank you very much for all the notice of what OSAC's been doing. We've been putting in a lot of hard work to try to make sure that whatever we put up to you as a recommendation truly has a lot of meaning and robust analysis behind it. But just to reiterate, we do have a clear top three properties that OSAC believes would be prime for open space acquisition, and that's levels 3, Zaharias, and Rogers Farm. That was ignoring any development plans that may be on the table or forthcoming. That was just, if it was possible, this is what we'd recommend as purchasing. A format for the report, a formal report is being discussed right now, and a formal report should be forthcoming within the next few months to you guys. Beyond that, Zaharias property specifically, we have had quite a few residents talk to us about that property, not only at our meetings during public comment, but also at town functions, the most recently the Arbor Day event. There's quite a bit of interest in conserving that property for open space values. OSAC hasn't done anything to move forward with any organization or anything like that, but we certainly encourage any partnership with organizations and doing further studies, and we've offered to be a conduit as more information comes forward. That way we can bring it to you guys to help bring all the efforts of the residents of the community to help influence your decisions going forward. And then just to reiterate, National Trails Day is Sunday, June 4th. The Hot Quest will be from 9:30 to 10:30, and the Center for Snake Conservation will be from 11 to 12. And then just speaking as a resident, I live on Weldona and Idalia Streets. I received my letter in the mail today about the survey. I truly appreciate the board and town staff sending that out and trying to gather as much useful data as possible in this discussion. So thank you very, very much. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. And tonight we've got two presentations, the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, RCAC, and then they'll be followed by the Cultural Arts and Public Spaces Advisory Committee. Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. The Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee is on the agenda tonight, like you mentioned. They're going to recap the extensive work that they've conducted over the last several months to review options for the board to consider adding additional sustainability measures in the review of applications for commercial buildings that come before the board in the future. Members of the committee are here tonight, and they have a presentation to go through with you. Also, a consultant that has worked with us over the last several months is here as well, Sharon Procopio with JVA, and they have a presentation they'll go up. So Ezzy Snell is currently the chair of the group, and I think he'll kick off the presentation.
Thanks so much, Martin, and thank you all for taking the time to invite me to present tonight. Do we have the presentation?
Yeah, if you click on the
I see.
publisher icon.
Let's see. Perfect. Thank you. So as Martin mentioned, my name is Ezzy Snell. I'm the chair of the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, and I'm really excited to share with the board some of the work that we've been doing recently to come up with two proposals in particular for ways that we can encourage sustainability within the community. We've been focusing in particular on commercial properties, particularly given the upcoming plans for the Superior Downtown. We think this is a really cool opportunity to promote sustainability within the town. So that's kind of the broad perspective of where we're coming from tonight. Let's see. I'll wait for that to. Ta-da!
I knew something like this would happen. It's all my fault.
I didn't do it, I swear.
It might be. Yeah. Alex, go ahead and close it.
Might as well.
Several minutes. Which one was it? Was it?
What you did, Alex.
Is it on?
Just knew this was going to happen tonight. I should hum.
Present via interpretive dance.
We lost our drive.
I've actually tweaked it
Yeah.
a little bit, so yeah. Worst case, I can just go over. I have all the information I was going to present, so we just.
And we have it here.
So,
Okay.
So yeah,
I do, yeah. So, sure. Should I just?
you want to just go through it since the board can see it, and then I'll get a copy on it.
We can
I'll
see
get
it. We have it in
those.
our packet here. We've got it.
Okay. Would it be helpful if I say which slide I'm talking about, or should I just go through the general information?
You can do it any way you want.
Okay.
However you feel most comfortable.
All right. Let's see. So the first slide that you may see if you have it pulled up talks about why it's worth prioritizing sustainability on a community level. And certainly there are a lot of environmental benefits that work towards the town's goals in that respect. But there are also a number of other benefits as well that can be created by looking at sustainability. So one is an improved sense of community, particularly with the downtown area being up for construction. That's something that I'm sure the board's very focused on. Improving occupant comfort, particularly with regards to energy efficiency. Frequently, one of the other side benefits of those types of projects is improving comfort for occupants. Reducing operating costs for buildings, and particularly maintenance costs. And that's something that building owners and operators certainly appreciate and prioritize. Making buildings more competitive. There's a whole slew of data that businesses are actually increasingly valuing energy efficiency and sustainability in their considerations of where to move to and where they want to work out of. In fact, actually, about 60% of Fortune 100 companies now are switching pretty much entirely to renewable energy, and we're seeing that transition down into small businesses as well. Additionally, kind of along with the improved sense of community, there's an interest in promoting healthy lifestyles through sustainability, generating positive local press, and ultimately kind of bringing all those together is to produce more desirable and ultimately valuable buildings for the people that are going to be occupants. So all that's just to say that there's a lot of potential benefits beyond just the environmental components of sustainability, and that's why we think there's a lot of value in looking at different ways that the town can implement sustainability projects. So what we'd like to propose are kind of a two-pronged approach. One is to adopt soon a voluntary system by which builders could be asked to voluntarily meet certain projects that promote sustainability. And then in longer term, looking at more of a mandatory approach, so upgrading our energy code to the most current version of the International Energy Conservation Code. This is something that Lafayette, certainly Boulder, and a number of other areas throughout Colorado have already done, and it seems like a logical next step for the town to do without incurring a lot of additional expense. So for the voluntary pilot project, what we're really looking at is the commercial development review process. And if you look at slide 4, there's a number of bullets that can't go through it, but I'll go ahead and read it out for everyone else who's in the audience or watching at home. One is to just have a set of vetted sustainability projects or improvements. The Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee spent a lot of time looking at different projects that may or may not make sense for commercial buildings to implement. And we prioritize those on the basis of cost effectiveness and actual ability to provide positive results. So what we've come up with, and I'll kind of go over piece by piece exactly what we put together, but is a list of recommended projects that commercial builders can adopt. Our other hope with this is to give the town the ability to assess good, effective sustainability projects going forward as well. So if a builder or contractor comes in and has an idea for a project, the town board has something that they can look at and assess that. And then finally, we want to use the development review to encourage sustainability. So this includes asking developers to meet a certain number of sustainability points. Essentially what we've done is assigned a point value to each project based on the level of complexity and cost involved and also the benefits it provides. Our hope would be to have this added to the existing review checklist for buildings and then the final development plan review. So that's in the commercial development review process. Additionally, during and post-construction, we're looking at potentially leveraging this as a way to address issues or variances that emerge in order to make buildings even better. So within the document itself, we've got 4 overarching categories for sustainability. There's energy efficiency, water conservation, waste management, and general overall sustainability or community building measures. So each of the slides that follow this kind of talk a little bit about each of the separate ones and provide visual examples. But for everyone in the audience, you can just kind of imagine. For energy efficiency, some of the types of measures that we're looking at are including on-site renewable energy generation. So that could be wind, solar, geothermal, small-scale hydroelectric, if that's applicable, and biomass. Looking at building to the most recent International Energy Conservation Code, and that's a widely established and proven energy code that has been demonstrated consistently and actually save energy and save costs. Installing solar awnings and designating space that can be used for community solar. And then finally would be to evaluate the building from the builder's point of view using the DOE's new asset score tool. And so that's kind of a way of looking at the building shell itself, regardless of how it's actually used, to see how different buildings compare to one another and how efficiently they're built. In terms of water conservation, some of the measures include water fountains that include bottle filling stations, passive rainwater harvesting elements, using water sense equipment, and this is basically like the Energy Star program, but for water. So they have things like irrigation controllers, faucets, toilets, all designed to be low flow and water conserving. And then also looking at finding alternative uses for single pass effluent. And so some examples might include landscaping, cooling tower makeup water, toilet flushing, things like that. Next is waste management. And some of the measures include using regionally sourced building materials, recycled building materials, contracting to recycle construction waste during the construction process, creating an area for on-site composting, and providing built-in spaces for combined recycling, composting, and trash to make sure that buildings have the 3 separate containers so that people can actually, occupants are encouraged to use those. And then finally, our kind of broader or more general sustainability and community building efforts. So these include things like installing a green roof, which is essentially having a planted roof on buildings, which lowers energy costs, makes the indoor environment more comfortable. It reduces the urban heat island effect, so it actually improves the whole community around the building. Planting native shade trees, installing bike racks. I know the board talked previously about the upcoming Bike to Work Day, and so making sure that we have enough bike racks to support people that want to use that as a commuting option. Looking at installing electric vehicle charging equipment, particularly if it's solar powered. Providing space for a community garden or community supported agriculture, and promoting walkability and trails around each project. So again, the general approach is to have a voluntary list of all these different types of measures that builders can kind of pick and choose from in order to choose whatever makes the most sense from them. So in terms of next steps, we'd like to ask if there's interest in proceeding with the pilot project that would be voluntary, and then also encourage the board to consider adopting the most recent energy code as well at the earliest convenience. So are there any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you so much.
all of the
Sorry, we didn't
information.
have visuals.
Yes. So I think it would be appropriate to have questions from the board, and then probably it will take a little bit more lengthy discussion with the board, and that might
Absolutely.
be appropriate for a follow-up meeting or a retreat or something like that. But I just don't think we'll have. I don't think we'll have sufficient time to
Absolutely.
digest and have a meaningful discussion here to give you direction at
Sure.
this point in time.
And we're happy to provide whatever support we can as well as the board considers it.
Thank you. But follow-up questions?
Since you mentioned the downtown Superior developer, have you met with them about your proposal for the short-term sustainability or longer term?
We have not yet. And Martin, I don't know if you've heard any feedback from them.
We talk about a lot of different things and a lot of different options during the dinner with RCAC prior to this meeting. The discussion of the hotel taking a much higher level of building standard is an option that's come forward, but it hasn't been a formal part of the dialogue with RC.
Okay. I think the hotel is going to likely meet and exceed all these standards from what I've heard.
I expect so,
And
from
I
what
think
I've
it's
heard as
a
well.
wonderful, it's a great example. I think particularly around some residential, I'd like to encourage RCAC and the town staff to try to get ahead of this and get their perspective. It will, when we discuss it in more detail and potentially vote on something or not, it will be a question that I ask. So
Sure.
I'd like to have the developers' input at that point. Thank
And
you.
our viewpoint so far, just to touch on the last point you raised, is that on the residential side, we're actually doing pretty well as a town. And so really where we saw the largest area for improvement is on the commercial side. And that's one of the main reasons we're focusing so heavily on the commercial side in particular. So.
Yeah, just to follow up on Kevin's point, I think that would be one of my key questions as well, is what are the impacts on them, and we'd like to kind of hear and understand that from them as to what do they feel like are the impacts of what we're requesting.
Certainly.
Yeah. Rita.
Yes, thank you for this information too. And I always personally prefer incentives and rewards rather than mandates. So, if there's ways that we can incentivize organizations or companies to do something or reward them in some way rather than mandating it, because mandates usually end up being a conflict somewhere along down the road. So doing a pilot program where you work with somebody on a voluntary basis, I like that. But when we start talking about mandates, and I know your mandate is more about changing the code to bring us up to standard on the energy areas, and I think that's appropriate that we move up to more current energy standards that are out there. But to require businesses to be mandated to do something that they're probably not having to do someplace else, it's kind of a slippery slope or a balancing act to try and figure out how that works. And another question I guess I have is related to, have we talked to potential businesses or the developer at the Superior Town Center? But I was going to ask a question of Kendra. Since we already have a PD plan for the Superior Town Center, and there are Superior Town Center metro districts over there, would they be required to participate if we did mandate something in the town, or are they at whatever was happening at the time that they received their PD plan?
I hate to say it depends because that's a lawyer answer, but it depends. If it's a building code type amendment, then they're required to comply with the building code at the time that the building permit application is submitted. So I'll just overly simplify it. But if there are specific details that are in the PD plan regarding design or something else, then those would control.
Right, because I was thinking about even like solar awnings and things like that. You know, it could be that we couldn't even require as a town for the developer that already has a PD plan approved to do something like that, because the Metro District and or the PD plan would rule on those kind of certain kinds of designs like that.
Exactly.
So it's something to keep in mind as we go forward. You know, even what we have left for development, we should look at what we can impact and what we can't probably. And then I would prefer that we impact it by rewarding or incentivizing rather than mandating. But this is great work, so thank you.
Thank you. And one idea that we did have as well, depending on if the board would like us to look into it more, but our hope would be that if this pilot project is approved and we have data on what different builders are actually adopting and what makes sense, then that could potentially inform additional decisions down the road as to what the logical, most reasonable next steps would be to consider. But starting off with a voluntary rather than mandatory approach.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I think we're just at the beginning here. I don't know what the next steps are, but I think it should be put on a retreat agenda. I'd like to hear more from staff. So I think we're just at the beginning here. So I think you're going to have to be pretty dogged and stay with it and push us along.
Okay.
And, don't give up, because this to me is a really ambitious project, and it could have a lot of impact, but we got to stay the course. And we've got to proceed in wise fashions, and I don't have a clue what those are. So I'm just at the beginning.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, and I just want to thank you again for the presentation. I think this, again, comes down to, what type of community do we want to be? What example do we want to show for our kids, for, others in the area? We're in Boulder County, we're in Colorado. We all have a lot of shared values to begin with, and I think sustainability, conservation is really up at the top of all those things. I applaud RCAC for all the work that we're doing here. I definitely want to lead by example. I think that the town should encourage sustainability and conservation in every aspect, whether it's commercial, residential, office space. So I agree with Sandy that we're at the beginning stages here. We certainly don't want to do anything that will harm us in terms of attracting people to locate here from an investment perspective. But people want to be here. They want to be in Superior. They want to be in Colorado. They want to be in Boulder County. And we should at least keep these issues top of mind in terms of attracting the people that we want to attract here. So thank you.
Thanks. Sandy?
Yeah, just had a quick comment. A couple of weeks ago, I hosted the trustees' First Fridays, and we actually had a gentleman who attended that meeting who said, wouldn't it be cool if the town of Superior's moniker became that we were, the best sustainable small town in America, as opposed to just being the gateway to Boulder Valley, which is a great tagline, but that could be something that's really notable for a small town, because it is harder for small towns to do things sometimes because we have less resources. But in some ways, it's easier for us to do it because we're only talking about 4 square miles. So I'm excited about what you presented here. I do have concerns about anything that would negatively impact our ability to attract developers. And so I like the fact that you guys are thinking about that, and I'm proud of you for keeping that part in mind and not going overboard. But the other piece I wanted, I liked Trustee Dozell's comment that we want to encourage, not penalize. And so I really like that. And the other thing I would like you to think about is, let's not forget the businesses that are already in town. And can we give them suggest, I mean, you know, the water fountain thing is a simple idea that businesses could implement, and we can start recognizing some of our existing businesses for taking small steps. I mean, they're not going to replace the exterior of the building. You know, Target's not going to put a new building exterior on it, but there might be other things that we could do to recognize them for, you know, the fact that they built a building 15 or 20 years ago. They can't do some of the things that we would want, but are there things that we can recommend to them and encourage them? I am way more likely to support a business that adopts and tries to do some of the things that you're talking about here. And so, you know, I would say let's encourage the point system with existing businesses, but maybe it's different because they can't do the same thing. So I'm pleased by what I'm hearing here.
Cool. And to your point, one thing that we're looking at considering going forward as well is looking to see if there's a way that we could adopt sort of some sort of benchmarking initiative within the town of Superior that would apply to both new and existing buildings. The trick is that in a lot of other regions that have implemented that in cities and towns, they have additional staffing to support that full time. And so what we'd be looking at is there a way that we can encourage both new and existing buildings to benchmark their energy and sustainability possibly, and then recognize the businesses that go above and beyond so that they can get free press. We're providing more of a carrot rather than stick approach. And so that's something that we'd like to consider as well further going forward. So
that's great.
Okay, thank you again for all of your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, next we have the Cultural Arts and Public Spaces Advisory Committee. Welcome.
Some meaty presentations.
Yep.
Our slides.
So look at that.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
I think that's, is that all of us?
No, we have that.
Oh, we have the others. Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
I'm Debbie Yates, and
I'm Melinda Tan.
we are the co-chairs of the first annual Parties in the Park. And the idea of doing this was basically community building, neighbors meeting neighbors. We also wanted to promote the new Culture, Art, Public Spaces, or CAPS committee, get input from everybody who would be attending the parties, promote all the activities with the park districts and things that were going on in the town, and promote the 4th of July parade and the 4th of July event. We have actually designated 6 parks, and there was a lot of discussion about how we were going to kind of do this the first year. There are 6 parks: Founders, Purple, North, South, Pools, Community Park, and Wildflower Park. Each park has a captain who's in charge of their own park. Every park has a sponsor that's going to be helping out, and Melinda's going to get to that. And we're hoping that each trustee will pick a park and come and kind of attend and make a public appearance, and each of the other committee members. We are kind of expecting between 40 and 60 attendees at each park, and the idea is hot dogs on a grill, watermelon or fruits, something to be really easy that would kind of encourage people that they didn't have to bring something if they didn't choose to, but basically just a way that neighbors were meeting neighbors, and from 3 to 5 on June 10th, they can come out and hang and meet people and kind of have something to eat and have a good time.
Yeah, we chose these parks. You know, originally we were talking about having cul-de-sacs, so having more parties, but then we realized that would have been a logistical nightmare. And so we chose these parks because they have all of the facilities that we would need to be self-contained. So it would minimize any additional labor, you know, for town staff. So it's completely an insular party. We are thankful to have Claire Dixon on our committee from Dixon orthodontics, and she was able to foster excitement with other members of the Chamber of Commerce, and so we have now found 6 business sponsors for each party, and it was $200 to buy into the party. So I believe we have all of the expenses paid for, and we have. Let's see. Well, we have Rock Creek After School, Dixon Orthodontics, Karen Geiger, Carrie Nash, 100% Chiropractic, Colorado Painters, and Superior Earth Essentials. And oh, did I do the Rock Creek? Anyway, we've got 6 sponsors, which is really exciting. So now we have the businesses in Superior kind of behind this. So I think we're getting involvement from all sorts of from the neighbors and the town staff and the community and the businesses. So at these parties, we're going to have some, entertainment, and we wanted it to be self-sufficient entertainment so that we didn't have to manage it. So we're going to have the cornhole and ladder golf and this buckets and sponge race and bubbles and sidewalk chalk. And we were hoping to engage some of the town teen volunteers. I'm not sure where we are on that, but that would be even better if we had some of the, Superior teens there, trying, helping to keep the games going and stuff. And each of the CAPS members, I think you mentioned, are going to be at each park. So, and of course, we're going to do the marketing. We're going to have some signs and the email blasts. And you said we were in
Rock Creek Living.
We were in Rock Creek Living. There's some Facebook kind of links that we're working on, and some flyers. And I think that's basically it. But like I said, it's kind of an insular party to kind of generate excitement. Oh, and one of the biggest things we're going to do is, one of the things we're going to do is, and the reason why we wanted to have it in June is to facilitate conversation between neighbors for the 4th of July. Because, we want neighbors to build more floats, and so we have this very cute tips for building a float that Daryl did. So it's what you would need, and we've got some pictures, just some realistic representations of things that you can do in your neighborhood. I come from Seabrook Court, so they don't have to be 3 stories tall is what we're trying to do, not to intimidate people. So anyway, we thought that would be nice to kind of get people excited about that. So it's we're excited about it.
Questions? Yes. I'll sign up for Purple Park.
Oh, awesome.
I already have dibs on wildflowers.
Yes.
So
No.
Yeah.
Sandy's actually.
My microphone was off.
Yeah.
And I'll take Founders Park.
Okay, great.
I'll take North Pool.
You'll take. Oh, that's too close.
I can walk.
Well, that's
the idea, though.
Hoping that the trustees closest to your home park. So. Yes.
Kevin, there are 7 of us in 6 parks.
7 and 6 parks.
I do need to check my tea time for the record, but
It's a big park. You can each take one side of the park. That's right.
Hey,
It's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I told you we have ladder golf, so there's, you don't need a tea time for that. So.
Any other questions?
Mark?
So we got all the
Are you
parks
in?
covered?
I think it's
We have
really
all the
great
parks
that you're
covered?
doing this. I unfortunately am going to be out of town for a wedding. I'm going to miss it, but this is great. This is
I'm
a
also-
great
So then you will
opportunity
have to go to a different park.
I'm excited about it, and thank you. I think this is great. I love this committee. I love this idea. I do think we need to lean on the Youth Leadership Council a little bit here. It's a big council.
We're hoping.
I mean, I think anything you could do. I mean, I think
Katie Rummel is following up on that.
Yeah.
I know they've had discussions.
especially the 3 newbies tonight. That was well, until now, that was the favorite part of the meeting for me. I think getting them involved is really important.
Well, we're
so.
hoping they do all the games because we're going to have cooks and obviously greeters and managing all the, the details for all the activities coming up. So it'd be great if we could have some youth volunteers who are actually doing all the games.
Right, and even helping, we asked a question of them, what should we be doing to better advertise events, so they might even be participatory between now and then.
Yeah.
They'll do Instagram promotion for you because.
Right, we wrote that down,
we don't know
Insta
how to do it.
something.
Okay, I'm out, so that's
Yeah.
Can I
Can I ask a couple of
Teams,
questions?
Instagram.
I thought I heard some mention that you wanted people to bring food also. Is that
was
true?
the original concept, but because it's the first annual, and we're new and it's hard to get the word out, we just thought that was the logistical piece that we weren't really.
They are
we
welcome
couldn't
to
manage.
bring a dish,
Right.
a dish to pass, but we didn't want it to be a hindrance for people to attend. The idea was if we just had hot dogs and beverages and chips and cookies or whatever, you come, you meet your neighbors, make it really casual and easy, rather than feeling, oh my gosh, I have to make potato salad or something.
So not come because they.
Yeah,
And then
don't not come.
Yeah, the other comment I had was, I'm concerned because I have asked a number of my neighbors, did they know about it? And they don't. And so I really would encourage, if we can spend, as much as I don't love campaign signs that you stick in the ground, those signs do work.
Well, we are doing signs.
And so if you do those, I think they would be,
they're designed.
awesome. And then the other thing I was going to say, if you will send me your official message, I will make sure that it gets distributed to the residents of the Summit at Rock Creek.
Yes, and that's what we're hoping, that each of those block captains, they will email and keep kind of everybody in their neighborhood. I know there are some neighborhoods that have really strong, neighborhood associations and email lists, so we will tap into that.
CAPS has that meeting Thursday, so
We do.
we'll fine tune all the final elements
Our
there.
marketing campaign.
But I think it's a great idea.
Great.
Thank you.
We're excited.
If you can do the flyer via Facebook too, we could, those of us with Facebook,
And the
although
town's
it's not
putting it
going
on
to any of the
e-blast.
youth.
I believe that they are putting it on, and they've already started to do that. I know it came through the park district schedule and stuff. It was on that, so hopefully.
Well, great work.
Marketing is key. Thanks.
Great work, and I think it's going to be a success. Great way to kick off the summer, so thank you.
So we have a double.
Oh yeah,
double
CAPS Part
presentation.
2. We have more.
Okay.
We are going to be talking about the roundabout, and hopefully we have. Just keep going. Okay. Show me. Okay. Oh, this.
Yeah.
Okay. Marcia Wren is here. She has come and is going to fill us in on some cost, hopefully, but she was able to make it here despite her cast and surgery and all kinds of obstacles, but that didn't stop her. So up next, I'm Daryl McCool, and we're going to talk about the roundabout. This thing's upside. Can I go the other way? There. At Main Street and McCaslin Boulevard. So the objective is that we want to advise and place something aesthetically pleasing in the roundabout as you go up McCaslin Boulevard. And as you all know, we are the gateway to Boulder Valley, so we are really hoping to put something there that is very representational of that gateway. We have the diverging diamond, which is a gateway, and we have the pedestrian bridge, which is kind of a gateway. But we really want Superior to have their own unique identity and gateway. And so we're going to go through what we want, what we like, what we would like to pursue, and an estimated timeline. And then Marcia has been speaking to the artist that I'll show you a little bit later, whose piece we all on the committee really love and love the direction that he took out of that. And she's been speaking with him about process and budget and things like that. So you all are probably very familiar with this view, and we're looking down the hill. You can really see the Main Street roundabout on the right-hand side there, and then the over to the left. So they're very close together. They're not that far apart. Our idea, and once we go and put out the RFP and start talking to artists, the ideas that come, we want them to sort of be connected, but they don't have to be the same. But proximity, you can see, especially from that vantage point down, you'll have some pretty spectacular views of them. And then looking west, it's just amazing view looking across over into the mountains. That's the Main Street roundabout, and you really can, and the pictures aren't that great, but you can see over through into the McCaslin roundabout. And then looking down Main Street, and I thought this was kind of an important view because I was standing probably where you would be having the courtyard areas, or the, you know, where they want to spread out and have events happening. And so I thought that that view and then looking that way into the two roundabout areas was pretty crucial, and something that we want to really make sure the artist is aware of. And then just for perspective, this is the Center Drive roundabout, and this is our only roundabout with artwork, and those horses are probably about 15 feet high. And the roundabout on McCaslin, so this is probably more the size of the Main Street roundabout. The McCaslin is about twice that size. And then this is the art that we all on the committee really were taken by. Not necessarily the heron, but the idea and the concept that it was a gate. And, but it's not a gate in the typical sense of a gate. And I don't know if you guys clicked on this, but there is a link that you could go to, and there's an actual visual 3D representation of the whole piece. And that's about 15 feet high. So it's about the same size as the horses on Center Drive.
Where is that at?
It's in Sedona, Arizona.
Okay.
Is it Sedona? Is that right? Of course. And then one of the reasons we really love this piece is that it sort of wrapped and framed the mountains. And I was, you know, again, we were thinking of the foothills and the views that you would see. And the other really cool thing is that as you went around, the angle and the view changed as you were driving around. And this one we love not so much in terms of it being a gate, but it was an arch and a gateway, you know, just in terms of a representation and an idea, not necessarily a complete idea.
Well, and that one also had the opportunity to incorporate potential historic elements.
True.
Daryl, do you mind repeating? Do you mind coming up to the mic, or Daryl can repeat it?
Oh, sorry. I just, you know, one of the interesting things about this piece is, but not
Closer to the mic,
is
please.
that something not quite this ornate, but has the opportunity to incorporate some subtleties for the history of Superior. So not, we were coal miners, but there could be something. There was that other piece.
There's
that
the other
we
one,
had.
and that.
Oh yeah.
And this one's way too detailed, but we love the idea. It was an arch and a gateway. They really are miners on there. And again, you know, we don't want to have something that's overly distracting in the roundabout, so the drivers are veering off, trying to figure it all out. But more conceptually, that this was kind of interesting, that you've got the city at the top and the miners at the bottom, and it creating an arch and a gateway. What?
Oh, is that it?
That's it.
Okay,
that's
that's
all. There are hundreds, and I can give you guys the. I mean, there are lots of ideas, but I think until we actually work on the RFP, get that out, and start looking at artists that, you know, it's time to start taking the steps towards finalizing and sending out an RFP. So, Marcia, do you want to speak to the costs and some of the process that it would take to actually create a large piece of art?
So am I live now? Okay. Yeah, I've been doing some, I'm familiar with the public art.
Is that on?
Okay. I'm familiar with public art installations, and have been doing some research on the size of our particular roundabout and the scope of artwork that would be necessary for such a space. It's really large, and it commands a large piece to be able to have the impact, I think, that we want. For example, the slide that showed the sculpture that was in a roundabout,
that was in Sedona, Arizona, that had a little heron in the front kind of thing. It may have looked like it's a massive thing, but the actual sculpture itself is only 9 feet tall. And now it's 9 feet tall, and then there's a landscaping for about another 3 feet of it, and then a footer that goes down to the street level.
Daryl, could you bring that back up?
So the actual circle there is only 9 feet tall, and it may look, kind of like a major piece from the slide, but our wide open area being something like 160 feet across for the large roundabout is going to need something quite a bit bigger than this. But I thought that this would be a good template to find out what are the limitations of our space. How much would something cost that's considerably bigger than that, but also a very simple design. So just briefly, let me break down what is common to every public art piece as far as expenses. First, you have your artist fee. Then there has to be a structural engineer working with the artist to make the technical specifications for fabrication of the material, and also specifications for the footings so that this thing is really secure and doesn't topple over. And I've talked with several people about our 90 mile an hour winds, for a day or two every spring. And that's something that would have to be addressed in the footings for the sculpture. Then after the design phase, there's the actual fabrication. Then there's transport to the site here in Superior, and the assembly, and then installing the landscaping afterwards, which this has quite a lot of landscaping down below, which is in the kind of a traditional, not particularly modern fashion, but it's kind of, stones stacked, somewhat of an Arizona nature sort of feeling thing, as opposed to a very modern piece. So in any case, as far as expense goes, this particular piece cost $65,000 at 9 feet tall, without and not considering the cost of installation, because the town of Sedona footed the bill for the cost of installation. If this were to be expanded to 30 feet high, which I think our site there could definitely stand something in the neighborhood of 30 feet high, in a steel sculpture is going to cost in the area of $200,000, including everything: the artist fee, structural engineering, technical specs, fabrication, transport, assembly, landscaping. So I think as far as appropriating money, this might very well be the largest single, most impactful piece for Superior, because it's occupying the largest space. Even the spaces in the town center that we have coming up are not going to be that large as far as occupying a space for public art. So I think that for budgeting purposes, it would be reasonable to think in terms of $200,000. Any questions?
Yeah, Marcy, I have a question. Thank you. I love this. I love this. And when you're saying 30 feet, are you saying 30 feet including the monument that it would sit upon?
No, just a 30-foot circle.
Okay. So in my mind, I envision 30 feet including the monument that it sat on, so like 10 feet plus 20 feet. So you kind of double in size the round sculpture itself, or the ironwork, and then set it on a monument inside there. In my mind, I visualize that, and I think that might be large enough. But this is, and even the blue heron, because we have herons that nest in all of our ponds. Mm-hmm. This is just beautiful. I want one for my backyard. So, and at $65,000, I was really kind of pleasantly surprised. I thought that was kind of a good price for that. Yeah, really thing. So, I love this. I love it, love it, love it. And I like even the next one, which is just that strange circly thing that could be complementary in the main street roundabout. It's not so detailed, but something similar to that, the round and the uniqueness of it as you go around the roundabout to see it. Those two things, if you want my, I love them.
This one, I have to say, is very interesting.
I love them.
If you, as you go,
Microphone.
as you go 10 more feet, it opens up. It is like this, round like this, and it's an open circle.
Yeah,
it's a
kind of a-
sort of torqued
Yeah.
circle. I just think they've come up with some excellent starting points. I had expected to start way earlier in this creative process, so I'm very complimentary as to how they've been able to hone in on a concept.
So, can you tell me a little bit about the RFP process? I also love what you're doing here and love the idea of it. I would hope that the RFP process would be around the artist in the background, and we would give him or her the opportunity to get to know the town a little bit and bring the sculpture that most fit the town under your leadership, under the committee's leadership. Not, here's what we want some artist to build, right?
Right.
Help me understand the RFP process, please.
Right. I was just referring to this sculpture and talking to the engineers and the artist and the metal fabrication company
Okay.
of that particular sculpture to get an idea of the price.
Great.
And what we could expect to pay for something that large.
And we all on the committee love this, love this piece, but this is an artist from Arizona. And, we could call him up today and say, hey, we love this. Can you come up with a concept for us? Because he won't repeat this, obviously. But we also think that we would like to look at Colorado artists. So the RFP process would reach out to them.
Perfect.
And I do like the idea. I usually you've put an RFP together and you give some direction, but obviously artists are creative beings and they're going to give you back what they want to give you based on what we've given them in terms of information. So if we would like them to come and visit Superior and learn more about Superior, that might be something that we want to include in the RFP, that we want to have an initial meeting with them to let them see the site and things like that.
Yeah, one final, I would just hope, I don't think many of the artists we would want are scouring the state bid websites for RFPs that may drop. So it'll be a process in and of itself to let the Colorado art community know that we're interested here, and so hopefully we can get out, kind of get that message out.
There are avenues for that, and when we initially were on the committee to look at artists for the underpass, there are communities that we can reach out to within Colorado to make
Great.
sure that we
Great.
we
Thank
go
you.
and get
Awesome.
quality artists.
So I think you guys did a great job here, and the first reaction that I had to that one that we're looking at with the crane or the heron was it kind of looked similar to the Superior logo with the
Yeah.
tree and the sun. I thought, I was like, wow, I wasn't really expecting anything like that, but that could be something really special. I am spatially challenged, so when people say like a 30-foot structure and not including the monument, I would hope that when we go through this process that the artists, kind of use like AutoCAD or some sort of program so we could actually visualize what it looks like when you're coming down McCaslin or coming up McCaslin and see it from all perspectives as to what something of that size will actually look like on the site. So we're not going too small, too large, so it actually fits the site, regardless of what it actually is going to end up looking like. Just so from a spatial perspective, we're not going too big or too small.
Well, absolutely, and we have the we have the hill coming down and we have the hill going up,
Right.
and so it's going to look radically different from those angles. So absolutely, we'll need to be making sure that it's considered from
As well as from town center.
coming from the flat. There are a lot of things to consider with that location in terms of how it looks and how it goes up, and the wind that Marcia talked about.
I want to commend the committee's efforts here, and I think this is our one opportunity to get this right, and it's going to cost a lot of money to do it right. But we want to make sure that we do this right because it's going to be here, for the next
millennia.
Yeah, for well after we're gone. And this is an opportunity for us as a community to really make a statement. We're going to be getting a monument sign as we're coming into Superior off of Colton once the Resolute property gets built out, and this is an opportunity for just a major thoroughfare in the community to really just have an impact, and we've got to do it right. So keep up the good work. I love what I'm seeing here. I'm not an artist, so I'm not going to tell people how to do their job in that regard. Just let's keep moving forward, and I look forward to seeing what we can eventually install.
One area I would ask for a little bit of feedback on, the Sedona piece, when they did it, they did ask the community to vote on. They had 3 artists that they had, and so our committee is wondering if you thought public buy-in on who the final artist is a good idea, if that's what you want to do.
I think we have public. I think we already did that by selecting you.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
You guys are
agreed.
the public.
Right.
You're the ones that are representing the community. And I would ask that Martin, you and Matt and Kendra nail down that these 2 pieces of art are going to be paid for in total, or at least in part or majority, by the TIF through the metro, the
requirement
Superior
for
Town
public
Center,
art.
the public art. So before we get down the road and want to sign a contract with it, it's not coming out of. We may have to pay some of it, that being good partners and wanting something that fits the town, but the majority of the funding will be coming from the tax increment financing and the bonds that have been let for those for that roundabout, that FTP that's already been done.
So can we have that in the upcoming weekly digest, what the commitment was in the PD to public art? Sure. Financial commitment.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we'll know how much we have to spend on what we have left over.
Okay, anything further from the board? All right, great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over here, Marcia. Are you feeling? Yeah.
All right, next up is the consent agenda. And shall we do 12C first? Or is it better to just do the whole consent and then do 12C?
Yes. Typically, you do the consent and then you go to 12C.
Okay. All right, let's have a motion for the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, A, B, D, and E.
Okay, motion by Trustee Dozal, second by...
Second.
I had Trustee Ryan. I'll get you on the next one. All right, we need a roll call vote on this.
Yes.
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 Hanson? Oh, he's not here. Lasis?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
And Ryan?
Yes.
Sorry. I got confused.
All right, thank you. That passes unanimously. Next is 12C, adoption of a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Louisville regarding conceptual design of Campus Drive and regional traffic improvements. Sandy?
So I pulled this. I feel like I've been asleep somewhere. I expected this to deal only with Campus Drive, and it was broadened to include 88. And I'm a bit confused, so I'm pulling this for clarification. I thought 88 was going to go through a town process first of going through Traffic and Safety Committee, and then I read the Planning Commission notes, and Planning Commission is responding to our request that they look at the transportation plan, they look at the comp plan and whatnot, so they have a transportation component. So how did 88 come to be suggested to be included in this IGA with Louisville? What have I missed?
Alex Arnell, Director of Public Works. We've been, originally it was focused on Campus Drive, and we've been trying to get Louisville to agree to a scope for a study and really looking at potential application for Dr. Cog funding. That's what kind of
Right.
spurred all this. And so we had sent them the agreement, focus on Campus Drive. They came back and said, why don't we also look at 88th as a possibility? And also their issues with the 88th Street intersection with Campus Drive, that they wanted to look at that because that's the key issue in terms of capacity of why we get backups in Superior. So they actually came back asking for us to look at other alternatives as well.
Okay, so I need more elaboration. You said look at. Are you saying look at for TIP funding or TIFIA funding or Dr. Cog funding for 88th? When you say they asked us to look at it, do you and your cohorts over there think it could qualify for state or federal funding?
Well, 88th is an issue, whether it's relieved by Campus Drive or not. I mean, 88th could be the solution without Campus Drive, or you could need both. So we wanted to look at what's the feasibility, for example, of even doing 88th. We didn't think there was a possibility of widening 88th on their side. They came back and said, no, we think we can widen 88th on that side. Maybe we should look at the bridge and whether that could be widened over 36. Right. And then what happens on our side, because we were hearing from some members of our community that maybe we should widen 88th.
Well, I'm getting that, but are we going to go after funding
for
88th?
I think we're going to get some cost estimates for 88th and for Campus Drive and some of these, the other things that they wanted to look at.
Right.
We're going to get costs, and then we're going to come back before we develop any kind of application and go through that process.
So how do you see our Traffic and Safety Committee and our Planning Commission and this town board playing into all this? Is Campus Drive and 88th, are those two roads going to be sort of town town staff for Louisville, town staff for Superior doing all this? What happens to the traffic and safety process that we had been talking about?
Well, it will be difficult to go through that process if we need to apply for Dr. Cog funding this fall. I think that's what we're targeting, is sometime this fall that we'll have to submit an application. So we wanted to have a viable. We're first focused on Campus Drive. Let's get a viable option for doing Campus Drive and a cost estimate. Louisville came back and said they also may want to do 88th.
Okay.
And it could be that
80. Yeah. I'm a little foggy brained on this. Are we looking? I know the Campus Drive is subject to Dr. Cog deadlines. I know that, so I have no problem with that. Are you telling me that this integrated Dr. Cog and 88th Street is subject to Dr. Cog deadlines? The combined project?
I mean, it's more, it could be. I mean, I think Louisville thinks 88th could be a viable option to Campus Drive. I mean, that's one way that they may be looking at it. Okay. And they also say is 88th may have a better chance of funding than Campus Drive. So I think we'll have to make that determination.
Rita.
Done, Sandy?
No, but I'm sort of not where I want to be on this, so I'm eager to hear your questions.
Yeah, I have a concern that it says on page 1, whereas that these estimates and provide for terms and conditions of design and construction of Campus Drive connection or the 88th Street corridor improvements by separate agreement. It's not either or, it's both, right?
I agree.
So it's not one or the other, because we absolutely positively have to have a separate project estimate and design for Campus Drive Bridge in order to submit for potential Dr. Cog funding by February of 2018. That has to be completed. And then in here it says that some of this, this will terminate on December 31st of this year, but yet we're going to have to submit a project plan sometime in early 2018, first quarter of
I think
2018.
I think it may be earlier than that. But
No, that's the date. I just came from a Dr. Cog meeting
that's
last
the
week.
application date?
Yeah, February.
Okay.
They'll be asking for the applications in February or March of 2018.
Okay, so
And-
we have some time to go through all the committees, I guess, in terms
Right,
of-
right. So we'll have time for that, but I'm a little confused by this IGA in that, first of all, it says it's either going to be Campus Drive or 88th Street improvements on page 1. And I think we need to take the or out because we're doing we're looking at two different separate projects here. You've added 88th Street Bridge improvements. Well, you're actually combining three 88th Street things. One is they want to do the 88th Street intersection of Campus Drive, and I think that's an appropriate piece to go along with the bridge. Because, once you come over the bridge, you got to be able to get through the intersection of Campus Drive and 88th. Then Louisville wants, and I don't have a problem with this either, they want to put pressure on extending Campus Drive all the way to 96th. But that can't be part of the determination of what it's going to cost to get Campus Drive over 36 and with a bridge, and then through the 88th and Campus Drive intersection. That's one project. Then Louisville has a need to extend Campus Drive to 96. That's a project that has nothing to do with us, Superior. But we will support them on that. It would be great if the Campus Drive Bridge could actually continue on down to 96. I'm wholly in support of that. But that won't have anything to do with the bridge itself going over 36. And then the third 88th piece is the bridge on 88th Street going over 36 and possibly expanding that to 4 lanes. That's another project. So this is kind of a messy write-up of this IGA, and what we need to get out of it clearly by February of 2018 is costs, design, project, substance, enough to present to Dr. Cog as one of the projects that we want to get funded jointly, Louisville and Superior, in the next TIP, Transportation Improvement Projects, in the 2018 cycle. So we'll have to submit it in February or March of 2018. It has to be robust enough, not just some design cost, but something, or whatever it was here, estimates for something. But it has to be robust, and you know this because you've done this before for us. It has to be robust enough to meet the requirements of Dr. Cog, and it has to tell the story why it's a good project for us, two communities, to do this together. And that's one of the focus areas of the TIP project for the next cycle, is how we together, communities together, can actually improve mobility and community engagement and involvement. So we have a great opportunity here to get partial funding or a big segment of funding for this bridge. I really feel we do.
I think if that first sentence in paragraph 5, if you made that additional funding will be needed to design and construct Campus Drive improvements and or 88th Street improvements.
No and/or.
And/or?
Let me just.
I don't see an and/or there, is there?
No, I'm just saying if you change it.
The first,
No.
are you looking
No,
at line 3? Why do we have or? We have or in 5 and we have or in 1.
Just to give you a little background, we submitted an entirely different IGA to Louisville. This is how it came back to us.
Right.
Well, that doesn't mean we have to.
I
prove
agree
it.
with you. I'm just giving you that background.
Right.
So.
Where did these, or does seem to indicate a choice?
It does.
My mic's on.
Your mic on, she just wasn't close enough. And I don't mind the language as much as we need to make sure that what we're going to get out of this is what we need first and foremost is a project definition that includes enough detail to submit it for campus. I'm talking about Campus Drive Bridge, to submit it to Dr. Cog. So if that will come out of this, then God bless us everyone. But I'm not sure. I don't read it that way here.
I think I don't think it will. I mean, Alex can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way we had the IGA originally drafted, and they changed it to estimates only.
Well, I think what we have to have is an agreement on what we're going to do. And the two communities have to get together. And again, this 88th was thrown at us, a
Literally
month ago.
the day before you got it in your packet.
And I don't mind, again, to have that discussion, but we can't muddy the two of them, that the two of them can't go as one project to Dr.Cog.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do 88th Street
Right.
Bridge and Campus Drive Bridge as one project. It's not gonna fly.
And this was originally drafted for Campus Drive
Correct.
only.
Only. That's all we were talking about. And so I want this to be done. We definitely need to get started on this and be able to meet the February, March 2018 timeframe, which sounds like a long time away, but it really isn't a long time away because we've been talking about this for 3 years now. And so, not this IGA, but the whole Campus Drive connection process. So what do you recommend that we do to change this to make it more clear?
We've been negotiating this for a good month, and if we, I think, change anything now, we're set back another at least month.
Louisville hasn't even, their council hasn't even seen this yet, which is.
Oh, my God.
So that's what I had said in my report, is it's frustrating because this is what happened last time. You all approved something, then Louisville came back and changed, then went to their
Right.
council and they came back and changed it. So I don't know how much longer it will take, but I do think that we should make sure that Louisville, that first of all, these are all the changes, or go back to them and say, we're not agreeable to these changes. One or
Two
the other.
things. We have a Joint Issues Committee meeting on June 7th with them. And I think, Martin, this needs to be added to the agenda, at the top of the agenda. We're hosting it. And so we've got to make clear what our frustration is. And two, if there's one takeaway from all my time on the board, I will not approve a poorly drafted agreement. It bites us in the behind every time. I want no part of this. I don't even want it brought to us, really, unless it says draft all over it, So I'm out. I can't approve this.
Well, we'd have to change some words here because I don't like the or thing here in a couple places. It's not clear. And in other places it says one or, whatever, or maybe but I'll say it again, and I probably shouldn't, but I've been told that you have to say it 3 times before people get it.
She went to this seminar.
No, well, that's even before that. This is media training. You have to say it 3 times at least, sometimes 5. We need to design and develop a plan for Campus Drive. The bridge on Campus Drive from Superior to Louisville. That needs to be a project. We need to be able to submit that by March of 2018 as a completed project that's completed as far as how much you have to have completed in order to get it into the TIP planning process. You can't just say, we'd like to do this, and not have any firm data about how much it's going to cost and all that. So we have to have more than just some kind of a estimate of design. And we're not submitting to Dr.Cog for more design work. We're submitting the project for funding. So we have to have enough detail on the Campus Drive Bridge from Superior to Louisville. And that's what this IGA, I thought, was supposed to be telling us. Now, that's the IGA we need. We need jointly to put together a project that we, as the 2 towns, feel comfortable with and we can support at Dr.Cog. Now, Ashley Stoltman and I have been supporting it every single Finance Committee meeting and every single board meeting of Dr.Cog. I bring it up every meeting I go to, that we're coming forward with this perfect project that joins the communities together and blah, 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 answers all of the requirements for a successfully funded TIP project in the 2018 cycle. So we're setting it up, and it's frustrating that we're talking about it, certain council members from Louisville and board members here, but yet we can't seem to get something written up from staff. And I'm not I'm not pointing fingers at staff. I'm just saying, where is the breakdown? So if we have to write it in the next Joint Issues Committee, then let's do it. Let's write it, get it there, get everybody to agree to it, and then bring it back and have both the council in Louisville and the board here in Superior do that. Now, I also recognize that there needs to be changes to 88th and Campus Drive intersection. That can be part of this same project. Then when Louisville says, I want to connect to Campus Drive to 96, that has nothing to do with what we're going to do, what we're going to ask from Dr. Cog. But I am fully in support of helping them in any way we can, Louisville, in convincing whoever has to be convinced that Campus Drive needs to be connected to 96, because that'll be helpful to us and our residents that are coming out of Superior Town Center. And this 88th Street thing is, I think that needs to be a whole nother IGA, or it needs to be very clearly defined separately from this project for Campus Drive.
Okay. Kevin, did you have a comment?
So I'm directionally supportive of an IGA that requests $60,000 with a 50-50 split to study east-west traffic flow. That sounds like a good idea.
To study what?
The east-west traffic flow between Louisville and Superior.
Okay.
That's not what this says. There are at least 3 references and good read on it. I think I picked up 1 or 2 of it does feel like the study is going to be conclusive and result in an either or, where we collectively as the communities will either fix 88th or build Campus Drive. And that's not what that's presumptive. What's the point of doing the study? You know, I mean, it's just, so it's inaccurate. So it's unfortunate that it sounds like there's some history here that I don't necessarily have. I'm now starting to get a little anxious about the March 18 deadline for submission, or maybe even earlier. So I don't know how these issues are resolved outside of just if we need if data is going to help Louisville and our community understand the requirements to build Campus Drive, and I think directionally we're all supportive of a Campus Drive connection, or at least further investigation on it, and this $60,000 is going to help create that data, is there a way to get this IGA done without all the language that presumes there's going to be a selection at the end of an either or selection? Because I frankly think the data will likely convince us that both are required. Improvements to 88th and a Campus Drive extension.
We can certainly change the 2 ors to ands and submit it back
Or
to
just
Louisville.
well, frankly, I mean, that last whereas should just be deleted, in my view, right? It doesn't bring us anything.
That's fine. I mean, again, we can make these
Right.
changes and send it back to Louisville.
I don't think it's going to. It doesn't sound like it's going to get anywhere tonight. But in terms of just artistic creation of the IGA, I just I wouldn't rewrite language. I would delete language, significantly simplify it, delete that final whereas, and delete any conclusive language that says we're going to do one or the other. No, you're not. It's an IGA to study the traffic flow between Louisville and Superior. Cool.
Plus, we can have 2 IGAs.
We could, and it's more than traffic flow, you see. This is to create the cost estimate and what it would take to build the bridge. That's what this started from 3 years ago. So now we've turned it into some kind of we don't need another traffic study. What we need to do is decide how much will it cost to do improvements, the 2 improvements that have been have been separately set out. One is build a bridge from Superior across 36 to Campus Drive, and the other is possibly to improve 88th Street Bridge. Those are 2 separate projects, and we need to understand what it will cost, how long it will take, and at least at some estimate silly wild ass guess, or no more than a silly wild ass guess.
Okay,
it has to be more.
So should we pull this entirely, or send something back to them that we can pass and?
What I can do is send them another draft, so not have anything approved tonight. And based on the comments, I think what Trustee Ryan was saying is that one way to sort of take this is to take out all these references to construction. In other words, this is simply an agreement, an IGA, to split that cost of the estimates And we'll take out section 5, we'll take out the last whereas clauses, we'll take out and ultimately construct improvements from the other whereas clause and leave it, I mean, this is just a suggestion if this is what the board is looking to do. And send it back. Again, this is all a draft. You haven't approved anything, so we can send that back and see what Louisville says about that.
I suggest dissecting it into two IGAs.
Right.
Those IGAs can be pursued cost effectively, possibly together in some aspects. But if we have individual IGAs, they don't necessarily require each other. These don't require each. I agree with Rita's analysis 100%. These are two separate, distinct situations.
This feels like something we do a lot with traffic and safety, where we look at individual components without looking at the bigger picture.
Well, no, not in this particular case.
And if our objective here is just to meet that March 18th deadline, and that's what we're going to, and I'm not against that objective. And if we need an IGA, and we've already convinced Louisville of the need to jointly submit to DRCOG, fantastic. Let's repurpose the IGA to say that's what we should do, and then if necessary do a separate. And what I'm hearing, I'm connecting dots saying, I don't think we've connected Louisville because somebody hacked up this IGA and wrote this as if it's going to be an either or. And then when I think about what Matt said at the retreat a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I'm connecting the dots, and I think we don't have the data in full support from Louisville. Maybe I'm incorrect. But
Kevin, my concern is that this, as a combined IGA, has less chance of success than two individual IGAs. I think we have a reasonable amount of success with the Campus Drive, reasonable chance at success with the Campus Drive thing. I think the way in which 88th has been integrated in this muddies the waters considerably and makes it an inferior proposal rather than a superior proposal.
If we can just understand and make it clear that we're talking about two separate projects, not either or, and we're talking about two separate projects. One is Campus Drive Bridge and one's 88th Street Bridge. And those two have to be considered separately, not as one project or either or project. Then, and if we can get that out of this mess here somehow, then that's fine.
That's really different than what Tracy Ryan was saying. So at this point, that's just not the same. What
I understand.
I know what he's saying. It is different.
Right.
But
That's why I'm just asking.
Here's the thing that you don't have the history on is that this has been over 3 years in the making, Campus Drive. 88th is just a new issue where it's just come up now when we've been talking about 88th Street and all the traffic over there. So, and whether or not we should or can or could or should have or would have extended it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, which never happened because of many studies, evidently, that happened when US 36 was improved. It was decided that 88th would not have an exit off of it. 36 would not exit off onto 88th, and so then it stayed as a 2-laner and not became a 4-laner. Now, so that's a separate discussion, was never muddied up with this whole Campus Drive. And as it said in one of the memos here, and what everyone of us that have been around here hearing this for the last 4 or 5 years remembers very clearly and reminds people is that Louisville came and asked us to consider this when we were considering the PD Plan Amendment 1 for the Superior Town Center, because Louisville asked us to jointly go in and build this bridge. Now, so that's been 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago now almost, since I think they first came and asked that question. Now we're finally at the point where we can say, we might not have to pay for this ourselves, all. Let's see if we can get some funding. And we've been talking about DRCOG, the next tip cycle, since the last one was approved 2 years ago. So now we need to meet that requirement of getting a complete enough project description to put in there.
I understand that. I fully understand what you're saying. Because you've said it a few times, and I get it, and that would also be my extreme preference. I don't think we have the support. If we want to do
But
this.
see, but you didn't hear me, because I've told you, 4 years we've been working on this. So it's not.
This
wrote
language
it. That
didn't
doesn't
magically
mean-
change itself.
No, that doesn't mean we don't have the support. It means that someone wrote the language and it boggled it up.
It was from the city manager.
This didn't change itself.
Carelessly.
You don't have
I
support.
don't care who wrote it.
Okay,
Not
we
itself,
need to-
whether
we
I'm
need
just
to
letting
move.
you know that's where it came from.
Okay.
We don't have support.
Okay, we need to move on.
Okay.
We're not going to solve
It
this.
sounds like perhaps
on the
staff
dais.
should go back and talk to Louisville.
I think
and see if
that's-
we can come up with either 2 agreements or 1 agreement that only refers to Campus Drive, or 1 agreement that refers to both but only refers to estimates. But we
Yes.
can.
Right.
It sounds like that's a
My
conversation.
take on what's going on here, I think they are feeling more pressure in the immediate term from the bottleneck that happens at 88th and Campus Drive. I mean, that's a daily occurrence in the morning and in the afternoon, and that, I think, is pressing on them on a daily basis. And I think they're like, Campus Drive Bridge, great, but we also need to deal with what we're getting an earful from every day from our residents.
Go back and talk to them, but also bring it up in the issues and strategy meeting, which is soon enough. It's June 7th. It's not that far away.
We'll definitely
It's
do it.
it's not a month
Okay,
more of getting this resolved correctly is not going to cause a problem of reaching a conclusion by sometime early next year.
Okay, so we're pulling
That's why.
12C. Okay, all right, we'll move on to 13, adoption of a resolution approving a construction contract with Brandon Sand and Gravel for the 2017 street rehabilitation program.
So, Mayor, while Alex brings that up, just a quick introduction. So, as part of the town's ongoing infrastructure maintenance for investment into the town's street infrastructure, the town annually has a streets maintenance contract that comes before the board. Public Works Director Alex Arnello is here to go over the elements of this year's project for the board to discuss.
Thank you. I want to describe some of the elements that this project will entail, and it's kind of evolved over the last few months as we look at some comprehensive solutions for issues on McCaslin. I put this into this year's program because I knew we had just done the diverging diamond, we had done the Marshall-McCaslin intersection, we were doing the roundabout. So I thought it would make sense to do some additional pavement rehabilitation from the roundabout north to where we left off with the overlay at Marshall-McCaslin, and then take an overlay up the hill towards Rock Creek Parkway. So that was what was initially in the budget for this year. As we proceeded, I think the board had commented about not having 3 northbound through lanes. This is northbound in direction to the west, so the DDI is off the page here. So right at the Marshall intersection, what we're going to do is modify the pork chop where you have a ped crossing, move this curb and gutter back to the east a little bit, and then create a 3rd northbound through lane as you go through the Marshall intersection.
So that's the turn into Superior Liquor?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So right now that's the last, because you have 2 lanes and then it goes into 3. So we'll maintain the bike lane. We'll move the right turn lane over. We'll probably shorten the right turn lane and have a crossing of the bike lane right about here. So that does that. In order to do that and get the lane width, there's a little island that kind of sticks out at Coal Creek, where that 3/4, the left turn is into the Coal Creek. We'll be taking just that little chunk out because that kind of sticks out and prevents us from getting 3 full 12-foot lanes through that. So we remove that and we replace it. This is the actual bridge over Coal Creek. And if you've ever been on that bridge, it's in pretty bad shape. We have 3 or 4 inches of pavement, but we also have a membrane over the bridge. And so it's about time that we replace that membrane. So we'll pull everything off the bridge down to the concrete and then put a new membrane over, and then a new asphalt surface. And that'll be another element of the project. And then there's a bunch of concrete. If you've ever driven down there, there's a bunch of concrete that's just failing, so we'll replace most of the failing sections. That's what all these areas are. As you go up the hill, this has a little better. This is Discovery Parkway. This segment here is just to the south of Discovery Parkway. That's where you have the dip. So that section we're pulling out, and we're doing a full depth reclamation of rehabilitation of that pavement. So we'll put a new subgrade with fly ash like we've done in Rock Creek Circle last year. So it'll be full depth, but just in that short area. It's about 300 or 400 feet. The rest will be mill and overlay. So we'll just mill 3 inches off the pavement and do an overlay with new pavement for the rest of it. And then while we're doing this, there is on the west side, there's no trail. There's a trail on the east side of McCaslin, but there's no trail on the west side. So we wanted to add a concrete trail on the west side of McCaslin through the roundabout. The roundabout is constructing the trail, through the roundabout section. And then we want to connect it up to the Coal Creek Bridge, where there is a sidewalk, a trail on both sides of McCaslin on the Coal Creek Bridge. So then we'll have a concrete sidewalk trail from the bridge all the way up to Rock Creek Parkway. And
is that in sync with what the trail plan is?
It's always been on our trail master plan. Martin, you want to give some background on that?
Yeah, as Alex mentioned, the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee has prioritized this several times over the years, and it stretches back to when I was in that department. I think initially with the description of using a hard surface trail along both sides of McCaslin as effectively serving as a spine, a transportation connection from the north end of Superior to the south end, not necessarily just for trail purposes, but also serving as an effective transportation element to convey people up and down using McCaslin as a
Is this currently Crusher Fines? There's something there.
Is
it social or?
Well, I was going to speak on behalf of ProStack. The connection that we're talking about would go from Original Town all the way up to Rock Creek Parkway. There isn't anything there right now on the west side. There's some scruffy stuff you can walk up. Okay. Now, the only comment I'm going to make in this is that ProStack did not recommend a concrete trail here. What they have recommended is Crusher Fine, because what they really want to see happen is that we have Crusher Fine Trail going all the way from Original Town to the ridge, to High Plains. And so, we've got concrete on the other side, their recommendation, and this was, making this connection was number 3 on ProStack's plan as Crusher Fine, not as concrete. And the concrete's going to cost $166,000, because I did ask Alex what he thought that concrete would be. And my only comment on this is, we got concrete on the other side. Can we put Crusher Fine in on the other side and then use the additional money if we're going to, because it's coming out of general fund, it's not coming out of any particular budget, to take that trail, Crusher Fine, all the way to High Plains, because that's been a priority on the ProStack Trails plan for the 5 years that I've been around.
And I was going to ask a question about, you put that concrete, 10-foot wide concrete in there, and then eventually Rogers Farm will be developed. And I know we talked about that area along there would still be undeveloped, perhaps, that funky little piece of land along there. And then eventually we're going to go up there to the Shanshan property, and we're going to create a trailhead or something there. And I just want to make sure that we don't put in concrete and then 4 years later we dig it all out again.
Well, along Rogers Farm, that's in the area of the roundabout. A portion is in the area of the roundabout.
Right, but if you're going to go all the way up from the roundabout along Rogers Farm past the Shan property and up to where the concrete sidewalk is that comes around in front of the Key Bank building there, up by Rock Creek Parkway, you've got a whole area from the roundabout up to Rock Creek Parkway that eventually will have some possible construction access and movement and possibly relocation of that. When, I don't know. But I just don't like to put things in and then tear them out. You know.
Well, you're assuming, I don't know if we would tear it out if we.
Well, you're going to have to cut
what's
through
the price
it,
difference
or maybe
between
not.
pressure fine for the length of trail? How long? How many feet? And what's the price difference?
I would say a crusher's fine is probably in the area of 30 or 40,000, something like that.
And this is 166.
You've also got to maintain crusher fine. I mean, over time.
Right. And we have Key
washes
Bank
out.
up there. You know, we have that whole Superior Point that has a lot of employees that may want to come down to, town center, or may want to come down to Regional Superior and so forth. So I mean, it was more of a transportation link for the
right.
area.
I mean, plowing crusher fine too just doesn't work.
But
like
if you need to come from Key Bank down to Superior Town Center, all you got to do is go across where there's a stoplight and then take the sidewalk down on the other side. So now, again, I'm going to come back to what our advisory committee has recommended, which is crusher fine on the west side, because we already have concrete on the east side. And then, I know this is out of the plan, but can we get the crusher fine to go to High Plains for the other $120,000 that we would spend on this concrete? And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this today and tell you I was going to throw this monkey wrench into it. But we got concrete there on one side. And so I would personally, because the other thing is, if Rogers Farm ever does develop, maybe we can get the developer to help us with that concrete.
Isn't there already crusher fine up to High Plains?
Pardon?
Can't you already get up to High Plains?
You cannot. You cannot get to, there is crusher fine that goes from the Key Bank to right up to the entrance to the water treatment plant, and then it stops. But I'm not talking about you being able to go into the ridge. What we're talking about is that the goal is, for ProStack, is that we eventually have trail that runs the entire length of McCaslin, so that you don't have to go jagging off, go into the interior trails.
Yeah, so you can do it. You just have to go through the interior trail.
Yeah, well, you can, except for that's not optimal from a trails perspective, because it's taking you all out on the concrete trails, and what they want to do is have the trail go straight up McCaslin. It's been on the priority list for ProStack for probably 6 years, as long as I've been around.
Yeah, it's a joint priority with OSAC as well. They were, I believe, willing to, is this still the case, Mark, that they were willing to actually take it out of the open space money west of McCaslin to finish that pressure fine trail? Is that the case? Yeah. But I think, to answer your question, Sandy, is there are two projects. We can't typically, Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, we typically, if we save the let's say it's savings of $130,000 by going to crusher fine from concrete, there are no assurances that that money would go towards the extension of that trail to High Plains. It would simply remain in the general fund for future reallocation, right?
Sure, yes. The general fund would be spent at the discretion of the board.
But certainly you can propose that.
I mean, and I'm just saying, I'm looking at spending $166,000 that if we're trying to recover Wildflower Park or whatever it is, or we're trying to do other priorities that ProStack in particular has represented, and our other committees, I just don't see spending $166,000 to put concrete on the other side when we already have concrete on the east side.
I got to weigh in here, because I don't like the fact that ProStack had a report that was sort of half a report without comment. I gave very specific direction to ProStack, and I felt it was direction in January when they were disappointed with the budget, that hey, our hands are tied with this limited budget. I said, if you have a proposal, come to us. And I have not, to my knowledge, received a proposal. So I feel like we're mixing way too many budget hurdles and concerns and issues from ProStack with a street rehabilitation project, right? So I don't think it's, at this point, we're going to be able to direct $100,000 or $200,000 from one project to another that doesn't feel like it feels well out of scope for what we're looking to approve today.
Well, but this isn't street rehab. This has gone beyond that to adding a concrete trail. So it is a little bit of a hybrid project.
But I spend a lot of time on my bike on these trails. This is a trail that goes for, how long, how many yards approximately?
It's about not even a half a mile, maybe.
Yeah.
And you have to come off Crusher Fines to get to it.
Yeah, more than a quarter mile, but not quite a half mile.
Right. To me, I looked at this, and I don't like concrete, but I felt this was necessary for concrete, given the investment in development we're making within that 1 mile radius between the investments in original town, the investment across the street in downtown Superior. This to me felt like an appropriate use of concrete. So.
Okay. Is there?
Did you have just two other elements?
Okay.
Since we had that concrete in the project, and you guys were doing the track H and concrete,
right?
Hopefully, it was part of that. So we went ahead and got a price for that. I think it's $320,000 to do 4,000 feet of concrete from essentially track H, where Discovery is, all the way out to the end of track H. So that's part of it, part of the Brandon contract. And then the other thing we added in was a pedestrian crossing near Safeway. You have Bell Flatirons on the right here, and the Safeway entrance is right down here. There's bus stops, there's bus shelters. So this would be putting a mid-block crossing. We'd cut out a portion of the median and put the rapid flashing signals to make a safer crossing for people coming back and forth between the bus stops, Bell Flatirons, and Safeway. It's a request that a long-standing request.
Alex, we have a disabled resident in that neighborhood.
Hmm?
We have a disabled resident in that neighborhood who is in a chair that is small enough that she has to carry a stick to hit the crossing button. I've seen her twice and have helped her cross. I mean, I'm sure we're up to code, but if anybody knows that resident, it'd be helpful just to make sure
Is
that.
it in Bell Flatirons?
I don't know exactly where she lives, but I've seen her crossing in that intersection twice.
Okay, thank you. We'll look into that to
So,
see the appropriate height.
yeah, I mean, she literally carries a stick and has to press the button with the stick because it's too high for her in her low chair.
Thank you for that comment. So that's
Okay.
the project. The other part of it is that we've been negotiating with Brannon, who's done our street project the last 2 years. They were low bid in 2015 and did a real good job for us. And we went with them last year for Rock Creek Circle. And they, again, performed very good. And as you've seen some other contractors perform, when we have a good contractor, we would like to maintain our relationship with them. We've looked at the prices they've given us. Asphalt prices, as you know, oil prices have come up from last year. Last year we had a little drop in asphalt because of the oil prices had gone down. They've come up a little bit. In terms of concrete, concrete is in short supply right now. Everybody's busy. It's really been hard to get good concrete subcontractors, as you're well aware with what's going on with the roundabout. It's just we've been struggling with that. So they did bid out their work, but concrete is about 15 or 20% higher than what we've seen in the past. So that's part of the Brandon's contract. So we're recommending that we go with Brannan again for this particular project.
Alex, let me ask you a question. Mill and overlay for McCaslin, what's the life expectancy of a road like McCaslin or Colton, one of the higher trafficked traveled roads? You know, how long would it be before we have to do another mill overlay?
It's probably 12 to 15 years, so 15. And in this case, you know, McCaslin was probably built with some pretty good base, so we don't have the issues that we have with the clay soils and some other areas, so it probably has pretty good aggregate base course, but we do have some failures here and there. So we're not going with the full rehab that we've done in some of our neighborhood streets. We're just doing with the mill and overlay in this case. And that's opposed to like a double chip seal is what they did on McCaslin in Louisville, and that probably has a life of 6 to 8 years. We also did another type is a slurry seal, and we did that on the southern end of McCaslin in 2012 from Colton up to 128. And if you ride that now, you can see that we're starting to lose that. So that had about a 5-year life.
Okay.
Okay. Anything further on the presentation? Anything further on your presentation?
No, just the funding. I've given you the funding breakout. Since we do have the Track H, we're pulling in from open space funds, and for the northbound True Lane, we're pulling from SMID funds, and the rest from CIP funds.
Okay, thank you. Rita?
On the Tract H trail, concrete trail, 8-foot wide trail, it does that, I know you said all along Tract H, but I thought we were only going to put it from the edge of the residential on the east side and then bring it to the west side and then connect it through the 200 feet on the Discovery Office Park that we have. So are you going all the way from the east edge of the residential through Tract H and then connect to the sidewalk on McCaslin through the Discovery Office Park 200 feet?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Was that always intended to be concrete?
We approved it as concrete.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was always
yeah.
intended, but we have approved it as concrete.
Okay.
In the last FDP.
Well, I'm not going to rewrite that one then. North of the area where you want to put the concrete sidewalk and the concrete path, whatever, north of there, if you come from the south, you're going to have crusher fines hitting that concrete for a quarter mile or whatever the length of that is. What does it become north of there, or are we all in intersections and whatnot? I'm looking for, is there going to be, Kevin gave me the image I got out of Kevin's description is then starting, if we can do this concrete path, that's in the bid, the $166,000 thing, it would be continuous concrete then through basically the pretty part of town. We create a concrete on both the east and west sides. Is that the case, or would somebody traveling on the newly laid concrete path going north, would they hit crusher fines at some point?
No.
On the other side of Rock Creek Parkway.
Okay.
They'll
So,
hit crusher
so
fines.
it-
Bank side.
it is just a quarter-mile stretch.
South of Key
That-
Bank.
That's
is-
right, on the
that is,
south side. Did I say
that
north?
is
It's
crusher
south side.
fines on the south and crusher fines on the north with a concrete trail in the middle.
No, there won't be any. There won't be
Any crusher fine after this, right? Because on the north side, because it'll come from the bridge, I'm asking this question.
So right here, there's a concrete trail that comes
Right.
down from Superior
Yeah.
Point. We connect it from here.
Right.
Okay, and then we're going north all the way down. There is this trail that goes down, well, this one right here, that goes down to the trailhead there, which we may be moving, and so that we may not be needing that. But it comes down here, and then you hit the roundabout right here, and then right here the concrete ends right by the bridge, and we're connecting that the bridge to the roundabout, there's a short section there that there isn't anything there, so we're connecting that. So we're going to connect the full length with a concrete trail all along the west side, from Superior Point all the way down to the Century Town Hall.
Huh? We're putting concrete along the...
All along the west side of McCaslin,
Mhm.
from the Coal Creek to Rock Creek Parkway,
Right.
basically.
On the west side.
On the
Okay,
west.
so do it now going south. Move that little arrow south to show me where it starts on the southern edge.
Go down to the bottom of your screen here and move it up. There you go.
We're going to connect right here.
Off that, you're going to merge
Mhm.
with
Right,
that.
and there's nothing on the other side. You're on the road south of Rock Creek Parkway.
Yeah, there's nothing over here.
There's some crusher fine right there, and then it stops.
What's over here?
There's soft surface to the
Soft surface down?
that ends.
Yeah,
There's soft surface
right.
trail that ends at the
Right
water
there,
treatment
about there.
plant.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So staff's understood over the years that the direction from the board at the policy level was to try and make this a hard surface trail. If you want to do something different, obviously that's a change that you could direct.
My concern is not that it's a hard surface trail. My concern is that there has, the construction and the other work that has to go along there, just want to make sure that we aren't getting ahead of ourselves and we do something that we have to tear out later. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind that there's going to be a hard surface trail along there. I just want to make sure we don't do it too far ahead of ourselves.
And Alex, to that concern, your response was it wouldn't need to be torn out with the possible exception of a cut through that would be repaired.
Right, there's probably going to be a driveway depending on where we put the trailhead.
Right.
And we'll have a driveway that you don't want the soft surface that you're
Right.
driving over, so you probably want to have that concrete anyway.
Okay.
So really the only potential throwaway cost would just be that curb cut or that entrance into wherever the Shan-Shan trailhead ends up being. So with the design of the roundabout, I understand the Public Works, through the review process with the board direction, was to incorporate the alignment, make this possibility a reality through the design process, and this would just be delivering on that.
Would this be a pedestrian-only trail, or would bicyclists be allowed to use it as well?
It's meant to be 10 feet, so it's a multi-use trail.
Okay. Well, I think, getting bicyclists off McCaslin is helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the other side. I mean, honestly.
Right.
The other side isn't 10 feet wide, though, is it, the sidewalk
No,
on
it's-
this? It's what?
It's
It's
6.
Is it 8?
It's 6.
I don't think it's 8. I think it's probably,
Six.
it's 6, yeah.
But if you're riding up to Key Bank, you can ride on this trail because it would be two-way. So, I mean, you wouldn't have to cross McCaslin and cross back if you're going to.
Let's get to another issue, competitive bids. I don't see any. What happened? Why not?
Well, we felt we had a contractor that we worked with last year that we had good experience with, and if not, we could go out and get competitive bids. That's certainly the board's prerogative, but we felt we had good experience last year and wanted to continue that and know we would have a good
Why
contract.
do you
to
have
work
an
with.
option? I thought we always do competitive bids.
Well, we negotiated and we felt we had prices that were competitive in the marketplace, and that we had a contractor that we had worked with in the past. Yes, you're waiving your procedures for bidding.
Say that louder.
You're waiving your procedures for bidding by selecting Brandon without going through the bidding process.
Kenra, would you weigh in on that?
This is the first I've heard of this, so yes, I will weigh in, but let me pull up what I think I need to pull up.
Say it again.
I need to look at the statute. This is the first I've heard about this, so I didn't know that there was no bid.
Okay, do your looking.
I will.
While she's looking, I just wanted to say thank you for putting the pedestrian crosswalk on Rock Creek Parkway over near the Safeway and Bell Flatirons. It has concerned me for some time, the people from Bell Flatirons crossing to get over to Community Park. And I think that's a great addition, and thank you very much for that.
And everybody goes there to get to that bus stop there, too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're Every time I go into that and out of Safeway there, I always am concerned about somebody running across there, so that will be good. Now, I want to question the street rehab for 1.3 million. So the preponderance of this contract that we're looking at here is $1.3 million, and that's really just for that section of McCaslin that we're talking about.
That includes the concrete along the west side.
And that includes the concrete on the west side? Okay. Okay. And how much is that, like? You said 160,000.
166,000.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're still talking about over $1 million for just from the bridge, Coal Creek Bridge, up to Rock Creek Parkway, or just past Discovery Parkway.
Yeah, almost to Rock Creek Parkway.
Almost to Rock Creek Parkway. So is that pretty typical? You know, because we'll spend $1 or $2 million a year on street improvements, and you know, are we talking about a comparable, or isn't it comparable at all because of the fact that we're really talking about doing an overlay on a bridge surface, and then
you have the overlay of the bridge. You also have you know, we're working on McCaslin, so we have the traffic control is much more expensive than when we're in neighborhoods where we don't have you know, that. It's more flaggers and other people in the neighborhoods. This is, you know, you have to have, it's probably $200,000 just worth of work zone traffic control built into this. So it's a lot.
Okay, because when we last year we did Rock, whatever your street is in front of your place, Sandy. Rock Creek Circle, and that was, I don't know how many, like a mile or whatever that was, but this is much smaller distance, shorter distance, but it just seems like over $1 million for that short distance. But I understand it's different than doing Rock Creek Circle. But since we have no comparable bid or competitive bid, it's hard to know whether or not
I don't
it's
like this,
equivalent.
I have to say, Alex. I don't like it. I mean, you can say you negotiated it and that it's fair and all that kind of stuff, but what you haven't provided us a linear foot cost from the past 2 budget cycles or any kind of comparison compared to the whatever the operative increment is. We have no proof that it's competitive in terms of a spreadsheet or whatnot. That's our job. So I don't like this no competitive bid and no detail proving it's comparable.
Just weigh in. You know, your ducks are in a row. I know you like the contractor. This didn't follow the process. I will not support this evening until Matt or you can better understand if there's a justification, if there's some urgency, if there was a justification in accordance with the guidelines we've provided. But this feels like if I were another contractor who didn't have the opportunity to bid, I would protest. And so while it pains me to not support this, and the risk of a protest and somebody raising their hand is too high given what we've talked about publicly tonight. So,
have you deduced anything, Kendra?
Again, I'm looking at just the town for now, the town's own purchasing policy, and there is no exception for this unless it is an emergency or it's a sole source or it's cooperative purchasing. So.
What was the last one?
Cooperative purchasing.
Okay,
that's
thank
with
you.
another public agency.
So in other words, we were required to get bids?
According to our own purchasing policy, yes, unless we determine that this was an emergency or that there's a sole source.
Can you speak, if this is not approved tonight and we put this out to bid, can you speak to whether this is going to get done this summer?
Well, it'll probably be a 2-month delay, and then we're into August to November time period.
Yep.
And so. Yeah,
But Alex, how did this happen? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, and it usually goes like clockwork. I sense something happened here, that it didn't proceed in the standard fashion.
It's similar to what we did last year. That we had last year, it was more cut and dry because we had prices that were similar to what we had the year before, because energy prices had come down, and so most of the unit prices were lower, the same or lower than what we had. We were just carrying forth.
So you're telling me we didn't do competitive bidding last year?
No, we had more or less changed order from the previous year.
Mm.
Yeah, I just see this as a continuation of what we did last year. We've got a contractor that's a known quantity. I'm comfortable moving this forward.
Yeah, I mean, the risk is we can go through the bidding process, we get the low bidder, and then we have a contractor that doesn't perform as well as, the one we're recommending tonight. So,
so as a guy that runs big RFPs, right, then I would suggest that if this is not, we don't have to evaluate based on price solely, right? You could set the technical requirements. There are a number of different ways. I'm not suggesting we rig the bid, but you have some flexibility around evaluation criteria. Lack of, acquisition planning does not justify urgent and compelling. Mm-hmm. This is not an emergency. So this is extraordinarily frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And if we don't take action this year, then next year it's going to be last 2 years. We just awarded this. Oh, I don't like it. I don't like being put in this position, I have to say.
I mean, Alex, I thought Brennan did a fabulous job. They were great with the residents. I understand, but literally the first thing I wrote on here is, do we have any concerns about not sending this out for bid? All other things, I just went, holy crud, what did we do here? Because I was pretty sure we had a policy that said we got to, this is millions of dollars. And to not bid it, something could have changed at Brennan. I don't believe it will. But man, it makes me nervous to say yes to this when we didn't bid it.
Yeah, what actually frustrates me is I didn't even realize we didn't get bids. I read it as we got a bid from Brannan. So I assumed it was a competitive process. So that was, I was careless in reading it. I think, okay, I'll be quiet now.
I'll call the question then.
Is Kendra moving her finger to make a comment?
No, I don't have. I didn't know that it wasn't bid either. I assumed it was bid, and that was a wrong assumption on my part. So I apologize.
And the only way we would allow something like this if we had a contract that said you can do it for multiple years, or that you have an extension, the ability to add on for the next year. But I don't believe our original contract with them 2 years ago stated anything to that effect.
And that's what I was looking for. You're exactly right. If we approve this as a multi-year contract with renewal options, with certain increase in price, and had given the bidders at the time the option of also bidding the same with with a multi-year contract with increases in price, which we've done with other contractors, and that's another way to do this. So if we want to do that, we can do it. But you're correct. That's what I was reading through. I went through the past several years, and I don't see any renewal options or anything else in our past contracts with Brandon.
So the board would entertain that type of clause if we went out and rebid it and had that clause in a contract, so we could do multi-year contracts down the road.
Sure. We've done that before for other things, and and there is something to be said about forming a relationship with someone that you know, and particularly when they've, in the most recent years, you don't want to go back 10, 15 years or something like that, because relationships fall apart over time. But if you have recent history and it's been a good historical experience, then I don't mind having multi-year contracts, like 2-3 years kind of a thing with a renewal. And I don't like going beyond that, like beyond a 3-year kind of
The problem with that's good, for example, management of the water treatment plant, where the job is in essence the same from year to year. when you have a street renovation project that changes fundamentally in nature from year to year. I mean, one year it's many more miles, and the other year it's got a totally different nature. This doesn't, a multi-year contract doesn't do the trick for me.
Now, I'll add to that, though. A few years ago, even this was before I was on the board, I know there was much difficulty in finding anybody who would even bid on contracts like this, because there was so much construction going on 36 and every other road in the whole Front Range area. So there is sometimes a value to being able to lock somebody in for a multi-year perspective.
Right.
But I don't know right now if we have that same kind of tightness of resources and capability. I don't know. I'm not saying we do or don't, because I'm not, in that business every day. But that's another reason to do a multi-year contract too, is if you're into a situation where you've got somebody you really like and you want to lock in that resource because you might have difficulty finding a good one in the future.
Okay, I'm sensing this is not going to move forward tonight, so I'm just going to suggest we pull it. Is that an acceptable solution? Okay.
So a final statement, Alex. If Rita is correct, and the market's so hot that you can't find anybody to do this because they're all otherwise occupied, you're still going to have to come back to me, and I hope the whole rest of the trustees feel the same, with a spreadsheet that shows us roughly what they charged. We now have 2 years at least of history with these guys, in some valid methods of comparison, and you're going to have to justify why there was any rate change. And you're going to have to prove to me that rates otherwise wouldn't have gone down because of certain elements. You're going to have to prove to me that they, in fact, had a reason for going up. And then, we're going to have to look at reasonability here of this quote. But I don't have any of that information now. So should you find yourself in a situation Rita described, we would need that, I believe.
Okay. Anything further on that? All right. Next up is our executive session. Do we want to take 5 minutes to take a break and then transition to executive session? Okay, let's do that.